And welcome everybody to our chatting about SHOT Show. I've been doing this for a couple of weeks now. Every week, every Tuesday morning, we get together and talk about SHOT Show with CloverTac out of Texas. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, appreciate the invite.
All right, so John Z is out there. Good morning, and asking if we got a late start. I definitely got a late start. Just telling Clover I'm all kind of screwed up right now, but it is morning and I'm awake, and we are talking about SHOT Show. We've been doing the series now for a bit, and we're not really. We kind of what I think we chatted the first show and kind of came brainstormed a bunch of ideas, and we've been attacking that list. And this one was after we talked about attempted to talk about gear for a couple of shows, reacting to the live questions that come in, and letting ourselves go a bit on tangents, just so that we can cover some things that maybe haven't been covered in past years or by other people. And I think we are going to talk about planning the trip. I think I asked a little bit last week, or at least I tried to, and we might have gone a little bit off tangent again. But about the trip itself as an adventure, or maybe it was in another show I asked you about, or actually I think I asked you about Wanamaker. But as far as the trip itself, the driving, flying,
Right.
getting out and getting to the show, I think that is as much a part of my adventures in YouTube and running the channel and doing stuff with the industry as anything else. I don't know about everybody else's opinion on the adventure part of it, but I guess that's where I'm thinking of this show. As far as the show itself, the SHOT Show itself being the focus of what you're doing and the reason you're spending a bunch of time and money. But the thing is, you're spending a bunch of time and money, and for most of us, that's getting to Vegas. And I'm going to try to explain that over the years, I think the journey is part of the adventure, right? Like the journey or the adventure. Wait, how does it go? Life is the journey or something like that. So appreciating the path to get there literally and then figuratively is what we're going to be chatting about today. So with that in mind, I'll let Clover kind of start out. You've had again a developing or a evolving experience with SHOT Show. I think we pretty much know that you're more of a fan of driving, but
Yeah.
uh, let's not talk about ourselves this time. Let's try to talk about the other people that we know that go to SHOT Show. What would be the person, the adventure, the biggest adventure, the most interesting situation? I mean, I'll start off with my friend Haas, who for years, well, he went to SHOT Show from maybe 13, I think. No, 12, maybe 10, even no, 11, maybe till I don't know. He still goes every once in a while, but he was going, and um, uh, at one point he got his YouTube channel got real big, and shot was for him a big part of the year. He was one of the first people I know to really rent a large house and bring a lot of crew just for his one project. He had like 7 people one year. So I thought that was one of the more interesting things to watch. Kind of, him get there, literally hanging out and living on people's floors. I think he lived on our floor one year. To being able to support and sponsor I'm assuming somebody helps pay for that, like a big giant mansion rented for the week and like make a big production out of the event. And like I said, what would you say? Some examples of I asked the biggest, the most interesting adventures.
I've heard before of there's folks that have had inadvertent, like things that weren't planned necessarily. They were looking for getting flights on on the cheap or whatever, and they've got those connecting flights, right? And so they're making those connecting flights. I think maybe it was um um dang it, the name escapes me. Marco.
As you're saying, I
Thank
was going
you.
to say, I was as you're saying that, I'm thinking
Marco.
of Marco. Him and Pink would
Marco.
actually literally go to like Phoenix and then drive the rest of the way, or go to Denver and drive the rest of the way.
Yeah, or get on like standby flights, or whatever. Like you never know when you're gonna leave one airport for the next, and things like that. I've heard, stories from that, all the way from that to inadvertent, like, there was diversions, or the plane was broken down, or you know, that that sort of thing, right? And then along that same lines, talking about flying, I think the vast majority of people probably fly. One of the cool things that I've heard several people talk about with flying is sitting next to somebody going to SHOT Show, right? Because it's a big show, just there in one place. A lot of people fly. So the odds of you getting on a flight and sitting next to somebody that's also going to SHOT Show, be that an industry, a dealer, whatever, right? And so you've got that conversation and stuff that can happen on the way. It's not like, the one time I flew to SHOT Show, um, I had um, I had people next to me that weren't going to SHOT Show, and so um, they weren't really didn't have anything in common, really didn't talk a whole lot, and so I just kicked back and listened to audiobooks, right? But if you had somebody there that you know you kind of got some common ground with, it could make a flight go by pretty quick. Just sharing past experiences with SHOT Show and talking about that person and getting their, especially if they've been several years, right, and get their perspective on past shows and pick their brain. Could be an interesting way to spend a flight. So
Oh, man. And I was going to say, when you're talking like that, depending on which angle you're coming from, at what time of the week and what day and everything, um, having somebody from SHOT Show is not, I mean, it'd be probably more odds. It'd be safe to say there's definitely somebody from SHOT Show. It'd be tougher odds to say there's nobody from SHOT Show. But I was going to say, I think it's not unheard of to have almost an entire plane full of people going to SHOT Show. And I know that that's happened going to Florida, especially some of the times of days. Going to Vegas, it's a little tougher because people arrive in Vegas any time of the day or night. But going into Florida, the airport closes, and there's times, going into Florida on a Monday morning, for example, is kind of the opposite of normal tourism. So, you can literally get like a plane of people that are showing up to man booths to be there for gun shops and then media, literally filling up a plane going to Florida. I'm sure it can be the same way going to Vegas, though. Again, like depending on the day, coming in on a Monday morning, I'll bet you most of those, or a good chunk of those flights, are SHOT Show people. Considering how much a SHOT Show is coming from out of state and how much of them arrive
yeah,
by plane, Monday morning, Tuesday morning.
right, yeah,
Right. So, yeah, getting on planes and talking to people for sure. And I would assume that somebody who's been going to SHOT forever would have just as entertaining a flight compared to just sitting there talking to somebody who's new. Then you're going to get into there's information that can change both ways. They're both both going to
right.
illuminate each other.
Yeah, if they're new, you're going to be the one doing a lot of talking, probably answering questions or whatever, right? And then
Both
if you're,
ways, yeah.
yeah,
I would
yep,
think at least I could see that being interesting. Now, I was going to add to that the bus that takes you out to media day, the bus that shuttles you to the show from your hotel or whatever.
right. Probably a
Opportunities there.
similar experience there, I would think. Yeah,
I mean, definitely, especially the one going out to the shoot. It is
yeah,
out of town, and it is. I'm going to say, I don't know if that bus stops. That bus might leave the convention center and go to a hotel, or it might go to one hotel and go to a second hotel. In fact, I'm sure they probably do something like that. So, that thing's going to fill up and then head out of town. It's in. If you take a look at a map and you see Las Vegas and you see that big lake, Lake Mead, where the dam is, the Hoover Dam. The range is, you might as well just say at Hoover Dam on that map. It's not really all that far physically from the dam, and it takes quite a while to drive over there. So it's a distance on a map. And I'm trying to remember. I mean, but a bus. I mean, I've never actually taken the bus in Vegas down there. I don't think it would probably take a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, though. You
oh,
think?
it's easily that long because from our lodging, Airbnb, anywhere else, I mean, you're close to a half hour. So a bus
And
is
that's
going to
a
be
beeline
longer.
straight there.
Yeah, a
So
bus is going to be
that's why it's
longer than
hard to
that.
know how long a bus might take. But
Yeah,
anyway, you're going to be on a bus for a little while, getting out there. And even then, it's a giant bus. So it's going to take you some time to load that bus and some time to
yep,
unload that bus. So you're going to be talking to somebody for a little while. And that's an opportunity. Um, again, to either prepare, learn about what's going on, hear about other people's opinion of this thing, their preparation for it. All that stuff can be useful, I think. At least for somebody that's new, I would think, who's looking for others' insight from other people, right?
yep. Well,
Good.
you got you got the title of planning the trip. I didn't know where you were going to go. I know we're into, we're late November, coming up on Thanksgiving, Black Friday, everything else right now. But there may be people that are looking at, like maybe 23 is not in the cards. They're looking for 24. And so, one of the quick things I'd say at the top here, um, since this is billed as planning the trip, is that considerations need to be start needing to be made, like pre-summer the year before. And then as far as your travel plans, your lodging, you need to be paying attention to that. Your support group, we've talked about those sorts of things before. The people around you, are you going to share a room? Are you going to share the travel? Are you going to share the house, like you mentioned earlier, Airbnb or something like that? Making sure you get those ducks in a row, and then by I'd say September, October, at the very latest, start, reserving things and locking things in. And,
Oh, wait, did you say start reserving things in October?
Yeah. I said at
I
the
would
latest.
say, yeah, I mean, I would emphasize that latest part. If you're
Yeah.
especially if you're new. Here's the other part of that, though. It was just as you're saying that, I'm thinking that's best case scenario. Because in reality, of all the years I've seen a bunch of different people go to shot, especially right after shot or right around now when you're like, oh man, I wish I could go in 23, but I'm definitely going in 24, like you just said, right? Like, so you start getting all bothered and getting ready and you're doing a lot of effort. And then somewhere around 80% of the way through, 60% of the way in, whatever, something happens. And now you're by yourself. Now it was 4 people. Now it's 2 people, whatever, right? And things change. So you got to incorporate that into your plan for sure when you're that far out. But assuming everybody meets you at the other end of the thing, you're going to be better off if you can put some time into it. Do you think you can hype it up too much? Planning more than a year ahead?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe. Um, you kind of run that risk, I guess, to people that haven't been before. But
If you
you know,
think you're going to get some massive payoff, maybe. But I think if
well,
you're just doing it, then you're going to have kind of a more
I think
better
it's
at it than
I
if
think
you waited some more than a year.
I think it's a matter of perspective, and it depends on who you talk to, and I always say it that there are certain people that just the message that we have individually resonates with that person. And a good example, there's some talk about that out there in the live chat today with Ghost. And that's Chris with the 740, who was at the Tulsa show a couple weekends ago, right? And was talking with him and had been telling him, man, you need to get to shot 23. You need to get to shot 23, right? And he actually had a conversation with
You peer
Snob,
pressured them. You peer
with the
pressured them.
gun snob. Well, we have for a while. Ghost and I both have been telling him that. But then the gun snob, who I think the gun snob popped in out there earlier, had a conversation, and Snob's experience was, of course, different than anybody else that was talking to Chris. Snob's was he missed the first shot. He could have went to a shot show, right? And he waited to the following year, and he will tell you he 100% kicks himself and regrets not going to shot the minute he had the opportunity to go to shot. And so I say that to Ghost also said that Chris is in all in on shot and ready to go at this point, registered and everything. So, you know, just because it's late doesn't mean if you doesn't mean if you can't go. It just means you're going to have to make quick, decisive decisions and get it done. You can't lollygag around and that sort of thing. So,
Yeah,
um,
anything as far as price and stuff, you're obviously less options, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it cheap or you can't do it with some strategy or whatever. But
yeah, yeah,
I'd also say that we're not saying, here, no problem, we'll hold the door open for you to jump in, because it's definitely, Chris is not normal. Chris is not your typical person. It's like, I'm going to go to SHOT Show. He's been doing a live show for like a year or something, 50 something episodes. Um, and has accomplished all the things that would not be necessary to meet all the criteria for media. And then, is on, what's the word? He has momentum. He's like doing it. He's got an interest in doing it, and he's got support. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to be unrealistic in November of the year before. It's don't be like, this isn't the time for somebody who's like, I've never really thought about it, but I've listened to this show and now I'm
No,
going.
it needs to be, you need to be thinking about it, like I said, probably pre-summer. And here's the other thing, and this is where you were talking
Yeah,
about
let's go with a
Chris.
normal year, not a normal. Let's
Yeah.
talk about a schedule for SHOT Show.
Well,
It's every year in January, but here's how you get to SHOT Show, like a
so
typical year for a normal person has been before.
so there's people that they've gone to IB88, they've gone to NRA, they've gone to USCCA, and the process and everything for doing that is much simpler. There's less potential for error and a lot of other things than getting signed up and registered. And we're talking about the first time with SHOT Show. And so what I see every year, and this is why I say make those preparations, talk to people that's already been, start thinking about all this pre-summer the year before. And if you're talking about a first timer, and here's why: there are little nuanced little things that you can put in play that will really help curb any problems that you have later on when it comes to registration time and stuff like that. Can't tell you the number of people that you talk to them, you're like, hey, if you need help, reach out to me when you get ready to register. If you decide, when you decide you're going to go, let me know. We can discuss some of these little things. And then you don't hear from them until like November. And you only hear from them because they went in and tried to register on their own and they clicked some buttons or entered something wrong and done this. And now they're at the mercy of support through NSSF to try to figure some stuff out. And it can be a freaking nightmare. I know one creator now, She Fires, that's out there, that we had to get her lined out. We got her lined out yesterday, thank goodness, on the range day side of things. She had, I think, she can chime in out there, but I think she had little to no issues as far as the registration process goes. But I do know two creators that, oh yeah, yeah, I'll let you know, and they didn't do crap. And so far, I haven't been able to get them straightened out, lined out, and all that kind of stuff. And here we are in mid, whatever, late November. So, yeah, definitely we talk about that support group, and we can't stress that enough. Having people out there that have been through things before that can give you advice. You're not a burden. You're not a hassle. You know, definitely get with us if you have any question, any
You,
doubt going in.
no, well, I hear you, but you, as you're saying this, I'm like, that's a heck of a lot offer
Well,
to people that
me
you don't even know.
or like I said, Ghost helped Chris yesterday.
Well, Chris is somebody
There are
different, but I'm
people out there.
saying person off the street, we're gonna, I'm not necessarily, we're not saying, again, I'm not holding the door open for everybody who feels like looking for a way to get to SHOT Show. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to help Second Amendment advocates, right? People that are creating channels. I'll give you some advice, but I don't think Chris George Clover is either.
Well, there's
Um,
probably two type of people that's watching or listening to this,
that's true. Yeah, you're
right?
right.
The first is going to be the person that's not serious, whether they're trolling or hating or whatever the case may be, and they're just here to get the talking points they can argue against. And then there's the people that have been or genuinely interested, blah 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 blah. So I don't mind the people that are putting in the work, and especially if they put in the work and make the effort, because it's not like I've got a magic button. It's not like you contact me and I click a button or flip a switch and you're in the SHOT Show. You're still going to have to put in the effort and do the work. And I have had people not willing to do that before. And in fact, that's my whole point
No, that's
with
the
what
thing,
I
though.
was just
We're
talking
not doing
about. Is
anything magic. We're just saying, here's the door and there's the
I had
stairs. But if
people,
we get a bunch of people that go up the stairs and clog it, it just gets
yeah.
annoying.
But I've had two people. That's my point. I've had two people that did reach out to me, and then they didn't go through and want to put in the work and do the stuff that I told them to do to make it easy on them. And then now it's difficult, and they're semi sort of hating on it, like I don't understand. It's horrible. SHOT Show's terrible because you can't get into. And it's like if you would have just done what I said, you know, but you didn't want to put in the work, and then so that calls the hurt a little bit too when you've got a process like
Well,
that.
and
But
whenever there's any amount of, you keep calling it work, it's just filling in the blanks on a, you know, there's no barrier to entry. They're not like, you need to be this high to enter. They're going to, when they qualify somebody for media, like you just said, when you're registering, they just want to make sure that one, you are media, and two, you're on our side, that you're not going in there for some kind of gotcha thing. And most people aren't going to, well, we
yeah,
have never seen anything where some gotcha media has gone to all the trouble of setting up a real channel, being pro gun for a while and then decided to be gotcha. I guess that's not true. There's some people that have defaulted to, I can't do it the regular way, so I'm just going to flip around and try to get attention by being weird. But aside from that kind of nuisance, most of the time they're just making sure that you're really media and you're not just looking for a ticket in or some, an open door. And
Well, there's some that
like
do
this
get
free
in
ride.
under. There's some of that does happen where people get in under other organizations or other people, right? They're tag-alongs, and then they, end
I
up
mean, the
causing.
flakes and stuff. I'm not
Yeah,
talking about that. I'm just saying you're right, though. The people that are listening to something like this are probably putting in whatever. So if you're putting in work or whatever, that's the people we're talking to.
yeah,
The people that I guess are going to put in what do you call it? Like apply and then use the lamest excuse, the lamest hurdle, I guess, the biggest, most inconsequential rock in the path to go, there was a barrier for me to be able to go because they didn't want to go in the first place. And once they figured out that it's not that hard to get in there, they got to use something desperately to go. Oh, I wasn't able to go. It wasn't my decision. It was taken from me. That there's an element there. And I don't know how often you see it. I see it all the time in seeing the way people do their channels and stuff. There's a lot of people that are a lot of talk, and it's easy to do a channel sitting in your house, going to the range, doing stuff. There's a lot of people that are like, I would never do that. Well, you're never going to do that because you don't want to do that. There's people that love doing that and they make it happen. Right. And then there's people that are going to go to SHOT Show no matter what. And then there's people that are going to go, well, I should be at SHOT Show. I could be at SHOT Show, but here's why I don't like SHOT Show, because they wouldn't let me go. That element. I'm not saying that's a bunch of people, but anyway, that's an element.
yep.
And so let's get back to the typical year, though. Typical person, typical year. The show is in January. Now, they don't open registration. We're talking media here. Now, if you're a booth or if you're going there as a gun shop, it's a little bit different. But if you're media, that's the only one I know because I don't really talk to enough people who get their badges. To get their badges in a different way. They pay significantly more for their badges, and they're probably happening at the same time, but we don't really know. And they don't really, I guess every once in a while we talk to somebody who sets up there. So I guess we do a little bit of insight, but in any case, we're kind of talking to media right now. You're going to get invited back. So as long as you follow the whatever steps and accomplish whatever needs to be accomplished to get to SHOT Show as media, unless you become a massive nuisance, you get kicked out, which we definitely have seen people do or have happened to people or bring it on themselves, you could say. You're going to get invited back. So around October, you're going to expect to get the media invitations start going out. Now,
late October. Yeah.
Pro tip, just, you can wait for your email, or once you start hearing people saying, hey, a registration's open, you can just go register. Yep. So once you get used to that pattern, you'll register for SHOT Show, and then media day that we've talked about, going to the range the day before, that's technically separate. So it's not a given. If you're going to SHOT Show, you get an invite, you apply and everything, and you're good to go. You're not necessarily invited to range day. It's not, again, impossible to get invited, but because it's a different thing and it's a different place and they have to schedule buses and they need to know if you're going, do you need the bus? And if you're not needing the bus, you need lunch. They need to know a bunch of stuff because of the setup of the thing. They're going to need you to be invited. So typically somebody invites you, and that can be a friend of yours. It can be somebody in the industry. It doesn't matter. It's just that somebody has to put you on the list. Once you're on the list again, you're on the list. I don't know if any, actually I do know people that go back and forth. They don't go 1 year to the range and they go the next year, and they don't go for 3 years and then they go for 2 years. So you're going to get invited back no matter what, unless again, you're a nuisance and you get kicked off or something. And honestly, they're so crowded, you'd probably get an invite anyway, even if they didn't want you there. They're not paying attention that much. So you do have to get invited to the range, or you have to ask for an invite. It's not unobtainable just to ask around. Your hotels are going to drastically change. So you anticipate you're going to go. You can wait around till October to be sure. Maybe your finances or your vacations from work or something is going to change this, but getting your hotels the day after you leave Vegas is probably your best bet, right? Locking them in a year ahead of time. But some people want to change hotels, that kind of thing. But, somewhere around middle of the year is when I usually start paying attention to what's going on in Vegas. So they're going to be any 6 months out, you got a better deal. Any bed and breakfast I can't normally get, but if I schedule it 6 months out, I can get it. We've got a concrete convention happening in Vegas while SHOT's there. The electronics convention happens the week before, and I would assume it's not unheard of for video gamers to rent a house and sit around playing video games the week before or after that other convention, or maybe a week of de-stressing after a week of doing their thing at their giant convention. So anyway, Vegas has giant conventions. They happen in the winter because Vegas is horrible during the summer and people have vacation time. So SHOT Show, the fifth largest convention in Vegas, is happening the week after the third largest or second largest, or maybe the largest. I don't know, wherever the electronics show is. The concrete convention is big enough to push SHOT Show around, so it's bigger than SHOT. Or wait, did we say it was bigger than SHOT Show, or it's not as big as SHOT Show? It's physically much bigger than SHOT Show, but I think the attendance was like a half a SHOT Show. But money wise, they have the big convention center. That's happening at the same time though, and then other shows happen right after. So Vegas is in the process of doing stuff. Assuming you're going to just rent a place in Vegas is probably a bad idea. Vehicles. Is there any? If you've rented vehicles to go there before, is there any advantage of renting your vehicles out ahead of time?
There is, because the just depends on where you're at. I mean, I'm super rural, right? So part of the issue that can happen here when you're renting, you're dependent upon people bringing vehicles back, right? So it's like they rent something out. Well, they expect, 3 cars back that day, and for whatever reason, 2 people don't bring them back that day. That happens quite regularly with rentals. And so having that beforehand gives you the clout to go, look, I reserved this 6 months ago, 8 months ago, whatever, right? Like, you're going to have to find me a vehicle somewhere, somehow, like yesterday, right? Whereas if you just did the reservation the day before, a few days before, or whatever, right? It doesn't really give you that clout to complain. So, it doesn't make a huge difference. I don't know that it makes a huge difference price wise necessarily or anything like that. But occasionally, that's another thing. Whether you're talking flights, whether you're talking rentals, whether you're talking other things, if you start thinking about this far enough ahead of time, you can start looking at discounts. Like on, if you're going to do a rental, well, what programs, what organizations, what, are there coupons, are there Groupons, are there, things I can join that are kind of a no-brainer, and for 15 bucks a year, 25 bucks a year I can join, but it'll save me 100 bucks on the rental, right? That's 75 bucks. May not sound like a whole lot, but you know, 75 bucks you can save on your rental, and then save 50 bucks here and save, well, I mean, you've essentially paid for the meals you need to buy during SHOT Show week, at that point. So when you put it all into a perspective, the little stuff, the nickels and the dimes, they definitely help. Um, it depends on how far away you are. There's a big difference between, I'm going to fly into Vegas and I'm going to rent a car for the week in Vegas. I'm going to return it and I'm going to fly home. Then I'm going to rent a car. I'm going to drive all the way to Vegas. Right. Um, now we have driven, or at least I have, and not necessarily with SHOT Show, in anything. When I went out to GRPC and we hung out and everything, that was a Jeep Grand Cherokee, much different experience than a Nissan Versa. You know, not just with the room you had, and what was crazy, it was just me in the that Jeep Grand Cherokee. So tons and tons of room and very very cush, and it turned out that way. It was supposed to have a passenger and didn't, but that's a way different experience than 2 people or whatever in a little Nissan Versa with all the luggage and the other thing for 2 people. And then you've got gas mileage, you've got how well that rental drives or rides. There's something to be said about taking your own vehicle, something you're used to driving. And for us, that was part of the planning in a way. This show is about planning. Is, I think somebody asked, and I don't remember if it was this show or another one, but somebody had asked how many different events there was every year, and there's a bunch. Let's just put it that way. There's a bunch. And so if you plan on going to 3, 4 events, and it's a situation where you're going to drive to those events, or it's a situation where you're going to have to rent a car for those events, right? Um, the the biggest drawback to renting and driving all the way there and all the way back is time. Some people have work schedules they've got to get around and other things, and that time um, is much more precious than others. For us, time is not that big of an issue. An extra day, on the road, whatever, not that big of a deal. So then we look into, okay, well, if we're renting these vehicles, okay, well, by the time at six, seven, $800 a pop, whatever it might be, we rent vehicles for 3 times a year. How could that be applied to car payments, right? So for us, it was like, okay, we found a good deal on a really nice little car that got great gas mileage, um, under factory warranty. We're able to throw some AAA on top of that. We're able to throw an extended dealership warranty into the mix as well. So we're covered on potential problems or things that goes wrong. Obviously, we have, car insurance already, you know. And then, okay, well, okay, payments to these, let's deduct the trips that we would normally have to rent a car, right? And then when we're not traveling in this thing, we've got a really nice everyday driver as well, right? On the car. So, it's like
Pretty
it's
sure Clover just told everybody to buy a car so that they can get to SHOT Show.
mansplaining. Well, I'm just saying it's one of them things, not just SHOT Show, right? But if you're going to multiple shows a year and you're renting cars at those shows, or once you travel or on the way or whatever the case may be, factor in all those costs again, because nickel and dimes make a difference. I
Well,
mean,
be
you
aware of all those costs because you're
you
not,
could
unless you're getting your
potentially.
rentals for free, you're paying for them every
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I know that, but what I'm saying is, it was just a few $100 a year, and you're looking at the difference between I've got a brand new car rather than I'm renting cars. So
No,
makes a
that's what I'm
difference.
saying. Yeah, like that's a major expense, and the same thing with a hotel. That's why I did the van and started driving around because when I drove in 12 with Haas, we spent a majority of that trip with stupid hotels, and we're staying in these things for hours. It's driving me nuts. It's really not possible to do long-term road trips unless you're just pouring money into hotels. So anyway, the like you're saying, we're brought up a bunch of points there, but the SHOT Show is the big industry show, but there are other industry shows and there are other things. There's shooting events. There are, um, uh, there's other get-togethers for the community and for the industry and other things that are emerging. So if you wanted to have a channel that's focusing on the stuff, then there's other opportunities to see stuff, extracts, vast quantities of lots of stuff that's literally there for you to fiddle with and to explore and have people there to explain it to you. I mean, literally, it's all focused around video at this point. So there's more than one event to attend. So SHOT Show might be the one that we're talking about here, and it is a large one and it's a focal one, but it's by no means the only or the largest still. But anyway, it's not the only. So yeah, if you're going to any of these and you're flying and getting a hotel, well, renting or getting a vehicle, or what am I saying? Flying and renting a car. Uh, Factor all of the costs you're spending on that in a year. And like Clover just said, I mean, it might even be cheaper to end up getting a car. Now, the time on it, I want to address that side of it. You're right. There's lots of different people and lots of different circumstances, but I've been going to SHOT Show for whatever 18 years, and I'll continue to say it. And people can tell me I'm wrong all the time. They do every year. The adventure, the path is the adventure. When you're going and you're struggling and going to SHOT Show, it seems like all you want to do is get to where you're not struggling. I've only gone occasionally where I didn't have to worry about the funds part of it, and that's very occasionally. And I'm 100% telling you, it's no better when you don't have to worry about funds. It's not any better. In fact, it's just exactly the same, really. It's the same opportunity, the same potential, and it's just different
I'm talking about once you're there.
choices and everything about it. But anyway, once you're in Vegas and you're
Yeah.
okay. So anyhow, the adventure though, the travel to it, that part of it is part of this whole thing. So getting there and everything we've been talking about is more focused on the trip planning, gear, strategies for the trip. But the trip is the thing. I mean, the gear, the stuff, the people, the community, the learning and the experiences. That's what it's all about. Again, there's no way to describe the amount of intensity and the fire hose of stuff that you're going to deal with, you don't just turn that off and go, that was an awesome week of a fire hose of stuff. Like, I'm just going to just jump back into the, snap back to reality. And here comes whatever the rest of those lyrics are. Right.
Yeah.
And just start going into the rest of the week. One, you're going to get sick. I don't care who you are. You're going to get sick at some level. You're sick. You've just been in hanging out with all these internationals. I blame them. And then everybody else who gets sick from the internationals, we're coughing at each other and whatever, and it has nothing to do with anything except that we literally all get sick every year. So
And for me, it's lack of humidity that gets me more than anything.
Again, we're all susceptible because we're going into this really austere enviroment.
I run out there, I dry out, I come back, and my body's like, "Whoa, what did you just do?"
You've been eating weird stuff. It goes from like, I'm going to just eat nachos for lunch to like, I'm going to eat an extravagant dinner to like an energy drink. And now I'm dehydrated. Now I'm flushed. And now we're drinking and booze. Right. And so, Vegas is fun and it's part of it, but you're going to have to recuperate. So you're going to give yourself a week. If you're not crazy, give yourself a week. So we're talking planning, give yourself at least a week on the other end to be sick, to just not do anything, to relish in what you just accomplished. We've been sitting here talking about it for months and weeks. I've been going for 18 years. I still look forward to the whole event because of what's about to happen, and to the shared experience of everyone experiencing it is something that I savor. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to happen. And so many people are like, well, that was everything. I got to jump back and do everything normal again. Give yourself a week at least to decompress. Is that the right word? To absorb it, to let yourself figure it out. You're going to be, we haven't really talked about what to do with your video, because we should probably do a whole show on just tactics and strategy and how it's evolved for you guys and others to, how you deal with it. But you're going to need some time for that, especially it's your first show. You ain't going to you don't know what it's like to have hard drives full of video that you don't even remember what half of it is. And some of it's literally expiring. Others of it is getting riper and riper, getting more and more valuable to you. Like, you don't even know. And you got the relationships that you're forging and stuff. So give yourself a week to just do that stuff if you can. So here's what I say. Get there, take some time getting there, rent a car, buy a car, whatever you're going to do. Get some people together, make it a thing. You're already taking a bunch of effort and time to get there. Trust me, I know what it's like to spend a bunch of time and effort to get there. Take some time getting there and then take some time on the way back. Stop in Tulsa. There's awesome stuff to do in Tulsa. Stop in Albuquerque. I can tell you some gun shops. There's a massive surplus store there. It's awesome. Go to Red Dawn. Go to Dragon Man's. His tours and stuff will be over, but you can still go hang out with Dragon Man. Say you've been there. Depending on which angle you're going in, let's talk, because there's stuff to do on the way. There's road trips. This is a country built on freaking highways and suburban sprawl, Route 66 and everything around that. Like, this is a country where we have massive natural resources. The rest of the world had glaciers that took out all their natural resources. Our mountains run a different way, and the glaciers, our trees were able to outrun the glaciers and come back when the glaciers left. So we just literally have different natural resources in this country, and people take that for granted. Don't, stop and camp on the way home. Pink has done stuff where he's inadvertently got stuck in the middle of nowhere and given me, talked about what it was like to just have his mind blown, stuck on the top of a mountain, right? Intend to be stuck on top of a mountain. Like, take your time going home. Spend a day just thinking about SHOT Show on top of a mountain somewhere, in the desert somewhere, right? Everywhere you're going, even if you don't have to take extra time or take extra distance, just stop somewhere. Just stay in a crazy hotel. Try doing the deal where you get your hotels all figured out ahead of time, and you do everything you can do to make it almost a cost list, right? There's ways to get free stuff, to accumulate miles, to trade with people, call in favors, and stay at a fancy hotel, stay at a dirtbag hotel, see what it's like to just pull into a town at 3 p.m. and try to find whatever's available. Do these things where you can stop and stay on somebody's ranch or something, a bed and breakfast. It's really a bed and breakfast, staying in somebody's thing, or don't, but do something that gives you some time to appreciate the trip. I'm telling you that no one does this, and that insight will be unique to other people who cover it. Like, if it's some sort of dentist school or some sort of like arts and crafts thing, like, there's ways to approach this in 2022 that you can own the show, like literally own the show and take it in a different direction as far as coverage. But honestly, it's just that everybody does this, and the people that burn out is because they tried to do SHOT Show like a dentist school, or like, like a kid that is in the advanced classes and just tries to game everything and has no fun, has no adventures along the way. All right, I'll shut up for a bit and let you respond to some of that, and then we'll probably start having to hit some of these questions. Otherwise, we'll run into 2 hours again.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're talking about, getting back, planning on getting back in the week after, decompressing and that sort of thing. One of the things that popped in my head, you said decompressing or something, or deep whatever, and I thought about debriefing. And that's where support structure and some other things come into play. Being able to, that helps ingrain things in the memory and stuff like that. So, definitely you want to talk about your experiences. You're talking about reflecting on them is great. Taking the time and thinking about that, thinking through each day, whatever the case may be. But then also, having that support structure, whether, somebody's fired up a live stream with people that went to SHOT Show, or, you just have, friends and acquaintances and whatever, and you just get together. I mean, for no other reason than you pick up the phone and you call and you go, hey, I was thinking about, SHOT Show and this day, and this is when it went on. And, what do you think about this? And then that person, bounce some ideas back and forth, right? While that stuff is still fresh. Yeah, that's the only thing I had to add. I mean, with what you're talking about, I subscribe to, and this is just the way I've always been. There's no right or wrong. It's what everybody's comfortable with, what they're used to, what they enjoy. For us, it's hurry up and get there, take our time coming home. It's hurry up and get there because you're pumped, you're jazzed, you're psyched, you're ready to go, you're ready for SHOT Show. And so, stopping off too many places and trying to do too many things beforehand, I don't know how much appreciation I'm actually giving to those places, because we're headed to SHOT Show, right? Like that's this overlooming cloud or whatever. Coming back, and Snob out there in the chat alluded to this, like, being tired from, just the entire week of SHOT Show and all that, how he sleeps on the flight. Ghost echoed that as well. Um, coming back, I mean, we have that too since we drive, and so coming back is more laid back. It's more, hey, let's go check this out. Hey, let's chill. Hey, let's eat at this restaurant. Take in the sights. Maybe a quick little detour road. Something along those lines. There's definitely far more of that coming back than there is going. But again, that's just the way that we handle things. We enjoy doing things that way. That's what's comfortable for us, and everybody has to kind of find their groove.
All right. So in an effort to, because we don't care about, at least I don't think we care so much about keeping track. We don't have any kind of itinerary or any kind of script here. We're just kind of loosely hitting some of these points. So for sure, if we're missing something, if we kind of ran close to something that maybe was something that you want to hear more about, and we ran a different direction with it, feel free to have us clarify or jump back to something, especially if you're listening to this in the future as a video. We're here for the live people, but also for anybody that might be listening in on this. Feel free to ask questions, and then we can address them in future vids. But we do want to keep this thing about an hour if possible, and there have been quite a few questions today. So again, thanks to everybody who's joining us live on a Tuesday morning to do this show. Chicago Mike was the first one to say, I don't know, or didn't know it's a hassle to register for SHOT Show. It's a procedure, and it can be laborious depending on, if you're like anything, you're looking at it like this is a chore, or if you're looking at it like this is an obligation I shouldn't have to do or something, then, the chip on your shoulder kind of, I'm suspecting kind of like what Clover was kind of describing there. Some people think that they shouldn't have to for some reason, like they can just let 60,000 people in a room and everybody's going to figure it out by themselves somehow. And then some people really have some trip that it's a barrier to entry. And then there's the people, I mentioned it before, but there's definitely people out there, a whole realm of people that will act like they want to do stuff and say they want to do stuff, but look for the first other person to blame for not actually doing anything. And you got to filter that out. But I definitely stop short of saying hassle. It definitely has turned into a hassle for a few people, but aside from that, it's just giant bureaucracy, and it's the anticipating, the normal bureaucracy.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of how I addressed it. Is it's not so much it's a hassle, but there's some potholes, and like if you stumble in
Can
that
be,
pot,
can be,
there can be, and if you
yeah.
stumble in that pothole, then yeah, you're gonna have a twisted ankle, and it's gonna be a hassle, right?
But
So,
anticipated. So that's the thing.
right,
Some people, and that's
yeah,
where again we
yeah,
get to this whole like that's why we're
and
trying to do this to give people some
there's
heads up.
people think, oh, it's SHOT Show, it's this big huge thing, and it is, but the facilitation, the management, the behind the scenes, the whatever, you're dealing with like two people with media, right? So you've got, you've got all of these attendees, you've got all these balls in the air and these things going on, and you've got basically two people that are handling it. So from an NSSF standpoint, if you stumble into one of those potholes or whatever, and you need some help, to get back up again or whatever the case may be, that can prove difficult because it's not, you don't have teams of support agents that you can call at NSSF and immediately get
NSSF is
through and get
probably a
help.
dozen people altogether, the whole organization,
That's
right?
what I'm
Like
saying. I
say
think
a
there's
couple of
two that
three are in
handle
charge of SHOT Show. Yeah.
registration for SHOT Show, period, regardless of where there's media or
And it's
whatever.
not
I
like
think
there's
there's
just
two.
the two people. It's just that they hire groups to do this. So
That's
the
what they
people
do.
that are,
Yeah.
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 So, and it's all about expectations or reasonable expectations. If you're think about just a movie theater, you go to the movie theater, you show up as the opening credits in the movie are happening, and you show up and expect to just have it be like the normal circumstance. It's not going to be like that. They're going to go, "What do you mean that movie? That movie's already what Like, why would you want to buy?" And then what I mean. They're not just going to. You shouldn't just expect the normal procedure at an inopportune time. I guess that's just what you were saying too. But so reasonable expectations, two things in it, the order, and that's why we're trying to explain the order, that the best way to do it or the best time to do stuff. If you tried to get into SHOT Show in March, it's a waste of time. They're not set up for it yet.
Right.
They won't be
Right.
set up to it until October. So that may be, we never really explain that, but that's something too. Like everybody will forget about SHOT Show probably about February, and no one will think about it again until maybe August or
Well,
October.
media, the bigger companies, and I've had conversations with many of them. They're thinking about it year round, and
Well, I
even
guess I was
smaller
just thinking
companies,
in the
even smaller
context of
companies,
conversations or the news articles. Like I'm just saying, like
yeah,
in general, no one will
yeah,
think about SHOT Show. It kind of gets anticipated, it'll
it's
happen,
true,
and everyone shuts up about it. But
yeah, it's
you're
true.
in this boat, and I don't agree with you. We haven't really talked too much about content strategies and stuff. We'll talk about that in a different show. But I know that you like to get all your SHOT Show stuff out as soon as possible to the show. Where I'm like, hey, if you've been to SHOT Show, you got a whole year's worth of content. If you've got 10 videos, then put them out. Figure out how long the year is and spread them out. Where you'd rather put, I think, all 10 of them out and fairly quick after the show.
Yeah, so you're talking about the tactic of taking advantage of trending and search,
Yeah,
but
exactly. There's
depending on how
different
you
people.
how
Most
you
people are on
edit
your
out.
side.
Well, depending on how you shoot that content, right? How you edit it out and how it's the context and all that's presented in the final copy. Yeah, it can be pushed out. It can be pushed out later on. I mean, yes, I agree. That's a whole other ball of wax that we should tackle in another show. But
And it's not right or wrong. It's just how you're going to
yeah,
do it. Some people are going to do it this way. Some people are going to do it that way.
yep, and it's goal oriented, right? You're going to do it a certain way depending on whatever the outcome. I mean, if you're trying to get to the North Pole, you're not going to head west. It's just that's just
or
the way
maybe
it is.
you are if you're trying to get to the ocean and go north, right? Like, so there's different tactics.
Well, this is true. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so and that's why somebody might go, that guy's crazy. Except if you spend 2 days getting to the shore and half the time, anyway. So let's get to John Z said, I'd be a tag along, need a camera guy, question mark. So, if you're not a content creator, but this sounds interesting to you, that's a legit question in so many ways. And so many people attempt to go to SHOT Show by themselves because they've seen Clover or somebody do it by themselves. I've only ever gone to one SHOT Show by myself. I'm not like loaded. I just got friends that started going back in the day and they keep going with me. And then I've got other people I just know and stuff. So, now not everybody needs somebody. And I wouldn't suggest that anybody needs just people hanging out there, but teams, together each accomplishes more. That's what teams are. Like, you are better off in a group no matter what. I've had shots where 2 dudes out of the 4 of us are sick. They didn't even leave the hotel room for the entire show. Horrible, right? But it happens. Like, again, you're going to Vegas and some people are just going to get sick. It has nothing to do with Vegas. Sometimes it's just, you know, I'm going to get sick one time in the year and it happens to, you know, to go there 18 times. It's, you know, somebody's going to get sick or something. Car trouble. You mentioned something about bringing your own car. I didn't want to interrupt you because we do enough of that, but um, I've, now that I'm thinking about it, more and more times I can think of car troubles in Vegas. I mean, car troubles on trips, period, is a thing that you're either going to
Oh
be
yeah,
being afraid of or you're able to comfortably deal with and
yeah.
see them for the opportunities that they
Well,
are. But that, you know, there's something to be said for having a rental car get busted into or break down versus your own car busted and get breakdown. So nothing's perfect. Let's just put it that
well,
way.
and that's why you cover yourself, right? That's why I've got multiple warranties and AAA and other things in play. That helps mitigate the chance that
But
something
I'm
happens.
just thinking psyche wise, like your
Yeah,
mind's not going to be on it if your
yeah.
car window is busted in
But you've
and it's
got
your car and stuff versus
yeah,
a
car
rental
busted
car that
in.
you don't even have nothing in anyway.
Yeah, part of the car busted in is, just presence of mind to not leave anything, out of sight, out of mind, and leave anything there. Not that anybody can't
Well, but you
bust
can't do shit if
it,
you're
but
driving your own car to Vegas. You're going to have your own stuff in that car. I mean,
well,
how many people are driving to Vegas in an empty car that looks sterile? You know, you're
there
going to
and
have
back.
stuff in there.
Yeah, there and back. Yeah, yeah, I agree.
But
Um,
anyway, again, that's one of those things that if it's a rental car and it gets its window broke, what do you care? You're going to make a phone call and it'll probably get taken care of, and there'll be new keys waiting for you at the hotel or something, right? With
right.
your own car, now you're thinking about, well, who's getting in my car and fiddling with the action? You know, it's just a mind thing. That's all
Yeah.
I'm getting at.
Well, and you talk about issues like specifically for SHOT Show. Snob out there. I know we talk about past experiences. I know he had an issue one year when he drove with his truck, and had to spend some time and get that fixed. And then I also know it wasn't SHOT Show, but it was Tulsa that Ghost had an issue um, that one year, and we had to replace the alternator in a hotel parking lot there. I mean, so yeah, it does happen. My
It
point to
happens,
that, if you're
but at the same time, it's a story we're talking about years and years later.
this is true, yeah, 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 just like
And it
hey,
was a fun
and
night just hanging
and
out and
while
shooting the
we were
shit.
and
Sitting
while we
around
were
shooting the shit around a table in a room going eating crackers or something is about 3/4 away from being lame, right? Well,
right,
sitting around changing out an alternator, BSing and shooting the shit and having people ask us if we're
right.
selling them weed or whatever.
Right,
That
that's
was a
what I
whole
was
different
fixing to say.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, changing the alternator, having fun, hanging out at a parking lot, and have people ask if we have any weed. So it's like, yeah, that's a great story. And yeah, I mean it's true. But I go back to mitigating that. Like our car, it's serviced routinely and regularly by the Kia dealership. Because we travel in it, right? And so, they know we travel in it. They know that it gets the 58 point whatever inspection every single time. Things get handled. If it's even the slightest inclination, something's going to go wrong. You've got insurances, you've got warranties, you've got all these other the balls in there and things in play because we travel in it. That's a much different scenario than somebody go, oh well, I've got a 19, 84 Chevrolet S10 with 380,000 miles on it, and I'm, 36 hard hours from Vegas. I'm going to jump in it and drive to Vegas and drive it around for the week. Like this is a much different situation. So, what I'm saying is, if this is a regular thing for you, I'm not saying my approach is what everybody should take, but I'm saying if this is a regular thing for you, it's definitely something to consider.
Now, you never know when you start doing something how long it's going to last. So you don't know where you should start traditions and get used to doing something, establishing routines, and then where you should start seeing opportunities for variations and having different things. So, and I can't tell you. I mean, I'm gonna say I like variation better than routine, but then a couple of things I'm sure I do very routinely or very whatever consistently. All right, so let's get into. We got a ton of questions, so I'm kind of just trying
Ghost
to
had a
grab in
ghost
more
had a
questions.
ghost had a super up there. Just
Yeah, I threw it up there,
presented.
but it's also a question, so I put it in the list of questions. But yeah,
Okay.
thanks for the $5. Definitely appreciate it. We're way back though to She Fires asking or saying, you want to have the required details all at once before registering. Don't want to have too much back and forth. I was sweating a little bit, but I give credit to this dude for his guidance. So, um, just like anything, right? If you're the first kid going through high school, then it's all brand new. If you had an older brother or sister went through high school, Those people had it easy. Luckily, I had kids that I knew who had older brothers and sisters, and they'd let me know, like, don't do this or whatever. And so I got to kind of cut through as if I had an older brother sister kind of situation. So that's what we're attempting to do, is give you some idea of where not to get stuck and where not to waste time. And that's one of those things, is they do have a certain amount of things that they're looking for, and Clover is kind of has a concise way of getting that out there. Have you did on a video or anything on it that we can point people to?
Yeah.
But anyway, the
like the
idea
registration process.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some tips to that on the GunTuber Academy channel. Yeah. I did a video talking about a couple of the little hang-ups of things that actually make it helpful.
Okay, so again, it's probably a little bit too late for that this year, but depending on who you are and how much effort you want to put into it, the doors are still open. You're just going to be one of them people jumping in at the last minute, sticking your arm through the doors before they close. But it is possible. But anyway, I think that's what Chief Fire is talking about.
Well, that potentially
all
is
this
another
stuff ready. Go ahead.
That potentially is another avenue for a story, though, too. Like if I wasn't planning on it, and then you're talking about after SHOT Show, right? You've had an awesome shot and everything else, and you go, and to think, like I just barely got in on my registration, and I just barely made the trip happen, and and then that makes everything that much sweeter. You got even more stories to tell, I think, in that situation.
Yeah, can't hurt. Definitely makes it different. And then if their next year is all planned out, you got a thing to compare and contrast to as well. So anyway, thanks for, I know She Fires isn't the only person who helped, but thanks to She Fires for bringing that out or bringing that up. And a good point that, it's just a matter of having some awareness of what to anticipate, and then understanding the process, and then knowing, okay, if I get hung up, it's because of this, and I've already got 3/4 of that accomplished. I just need to fiddle with this last page or whatever, and it's all figured out. Or just little stuff like knowing you got in, but you also need to get invited to the range. So get invited to the range. Jeff is saying, I think that's Jeff is saying, do you know if brands get charged when they add someone? SHOT Show is like $250 a person. it might differ if you've got like a giant booth, or you've already got people, or if they're feeling nice. But it's the shot industry. NSSF makes something like $11 million every year, and SHOT Show costs them $8 million. But the way they make their $11 million is by charging people to go to SHOT Show and doing stuff. So the industry's paying for it, and the way they pay for it is incrementally, right? And part of that is badges. So those badges that everybody's always showing you cost about $250. Last time I tried to get Bob in. I'll put it this way: if you try to bring a Canadian in at the last minute, they want to charge you $250 for the badge. And I'm guessing that was a discounted rate off the whatever badge was that year. So significant. So I don't think they just give away badges. Now, something, I don't know if I have it highlighted in here, but later on I talked about Smith & Wesson. Industry that large, I don't know if Smith & Wesson if they care how many people Smith & Wesson bring in, right? Maybe they do. I have no idea, but that's something I've never asked. And I suspect that he said something like, if I'm still on the list from Smith & Wesson might have like 100 badges and then 200 variables. You know what I mean? Like if you use them, you use them. If you don't, who cares?
Right.
I
know other events
paying for all of SHOT Show, but they're certainly paying for more than their booth. I mean, they're
I know
a lot of it.
I know other events. There's no, it's not that big of a deal for industry people to get badges and stuff. I know I've been offered badges for other events, like from company, like industry side, and I know Ghost has as well out there. So, but I mean, that's not SHOT Show. That's other events. I can't speak to SHOT. I don't know. But yeah, for the cost that they pay to get into these events and other things, I don't think most of them worry about it too much.
Yeah, and most of the events you're talking about are handled or are paid for, done, and people that show up is kind of inconsequential. The more people, the better, unless it gets too crowded and the fire codes or something. SHOT Show's the other way around. I'm sure they're always worried about fire codes, and that thing costs whatever, $6 million. So they need to pay for it. And they just have bureaucracy. So the bureaucracy is going to say everybody pays to walk through the door. Does that mean everybody pays to go through the door? Of course not. Will I be at the show this year? I'm trying. I like to go. I could have said yes, but it always gets into be the money thing. So yeah, probably I'm hoping. Let's see. So John's saying, or John Z is asking, I wish you could, or I wish I could, saying, I wish I could go, but my fiance isn't quite, or no, my finances aren't quite there. We'll do another thing maybe about price and going for budget, going for expensive and the things you're going to need to budget for. Um, we kind of said something about, or I think it was John Z who also said going along as a camera person. You can go to SHOT Show for free. You can get paid to go to SHOT Show. I've been paid to go to SHOT Show. Go in there for somebody else, right? Like go in there to work. Like there's 60,000 people in there. 20,000 of them are working. So yeah, 20,000 people are either paying their crew to be there or the crew getting paid to be there. Um, so finances are just when we're talking media. Most of us aren't getting paid to be there. There are definitely people in media that we're not talking to because they've already got it figured out. They've got their thing down. They're not paying anything for SHOT Show. They're paying a lot of money. They're getting paid a lot of money to be there. So, this is capitalism, and we're here to talk about people that are doing, well, at least I'm talking to people that are doing Second Amendment stuff. Clover, I think, is talking to people that are doing like authentic industry awareness and that kind of thing. But if you're just sitting here or if you're in the business of discussing gun stuff or exploiting gun stuff, those people are making big bucks being at SHOT Show. So we're talking nickel and dime because we're sort of poor, I guess. But there's definitely people that are. We just said $300. If $300 ain't that big a deal, do you go to your local gun shop and go, "Hey, get me a ticket to SHOT Show. Here's $300." I'm sure that happens. I mean, I know that happens.
Yep.
Thrown on that. Actually, I can remember one time I was waiting for somebody at media day. I don't know if I've said this story in a while, so I'm going to say this story. It has nothing to do with anything other than there's people that show up at SHOT Show that I'm not going to say have no business being there. They're just not in the industry and they're not media. Like they're just other people. So I'm sitting here. I think I've told you this story. I forgot who I was waiting for. And every once in a while, I just like to sit there and enjoy the show and experience it and see why it's different because I've been going for a while and it's different all the time. So at media day or at the range day or whatever they call it now, you walk through this little gate. Once you've been okayed to walk through, you walk through this little gate. And then there's these tables sitting there before you even get to the water in that first set of booths. There's those tables, right? So Clover knows what I'm talking about. I'm literally sitting where you have to walk around these tables as soon as you walk in the gate and decide if you're going to walk to the left or the right of these tables. So I'm sitting at one of these tables and just, it's not really crowded or anything, but I'm at this point in the place where it's like a crossroads. Everybody has to walk through this point to get out of the place. And that's where I'm sitting because I'm waiting for somebody to come in. I forgot who I was waiting for in the parking lot. So it was like, we'll meet you over there at some time. So I could have been there for 15 minutes. I could have been there for 2 hours. I didn't really care. I was just sitting there for a while, resting my feet or something. And as I'm sitting there, there's these people sitting in a nearby table and I couldn't help but overhear them because of the way that, we have amplified ear pro on. I can hear stuff. So this dude is from Canada and I'm going to give a long story short, but it's an long story short is he made a bunch of money with marijuana in Canada whenever Canada became recreational, I guess, or maybe medical because this was a couple years ago, but whatever. The part of the story was he walked away and the people said, "Oh, that's so-and-so. He made a bunch of money on marijuana." So that's how I know, right? But effectively, he was sitting there with his FFL guy who was there at SHOT Show, and he probably just brought his good customer with him because why wouldn't you? And the guy was saying, "I want this, I want this, I want this." So this guy was walking around SHOT Show like it was his catalog, and he would go take a break and sit down with his FFL and tell him, "These are the guns I want." But that was pretty cool. So, you've got kind of stuff like that happening. I'm sure that when Lou Ferrigno's walking around or one of the other movie stars, I'm sure it's something similar. They probably got an FFL in tow. They can say, "Oh, this is a pretty neat so-and-so. Oh, can we send you one, Mr. Whoever or Mrs. Whoever?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, here's our FFL. Let's make that happen." Have you witnessed something like that?
Yeah, I mean nothing that comes to mind like that has a specific story. But when you're talking about just kind of seemingly random people being at SHOT Show, yes.
Now I put discounts in here, and I had a reason. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I had written discounts in there.
Oh, this one I was talking about, the rental, and there's all kinds of discounts that you can get from being members of organizations or whatever it might
Oh
be.
yeah, I think I was just thinking like AAA and some other stuff. If you're a hotel too, you can get a discount at your hotel sometimes. I was just
Yeah,
gonna bring that up.
meals, hotel, yeah, travel stuff, anything having to do with that. Yeah, and so
And like I think you were even saying it, like sometimes it's worth being in AAA. AAA for what it's worth is 135 bucks a year, and for the fancy one. And
yeah,
I've had all of them before, and I've done some road tripping in the years. And AAA will try. I think it's if it hasn't changed, will tow you like 600 miles on the first breakdown or once, and then it's 200 miles every other time. But then they'll tow you 200 miles as many times as needed. So literally, you could get towed 200 miles to your destination, towards your destination, call them again, and tow another 200 miles towards your destination. I mean, they're just weird about it, but they just don't want to pay somebody in the middle of nowhere a ton of money. But anyway, they're really decent about it. And for the times I've had to be towed and use their service first, and then getting stuck on the side of the road and gas bringing to you and that kind of stuff, bringing a battery to you. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you got something else to do, sure, it's possible to do for yourself, but that $135 is totally worth it. And you do get a discount once in a while. So if you did stay at hotels more than I do, you might eat off that 130 bucks worth of fees in just a few discounts, right?
oh yeah,
Depending where
yeah,
you're at.
yeah.
Ghost is saying, I always fly so much easier. And he'll say something else in here about flying. And see, that's the thing. I have only little experience when it was in Florida flying. But in my experience in Florida, and this was years ago, before any of this, before YouTube, before the internet was fast, when I was going to Florida, it's 2009 was the last time it was in Florida. And that was, I always talk about, that's literally the first time we did video. And we didn't even get to put the video on the internet, really. We were putting it on DVDs. The internet wasn't fast enough for video yet, at least high good video yet. So I know what it's like to fly, but compared to driving, I just can't recommend it. It's limiting because you can only bring X amount of stuff, and I do mean guns and stuff, right, and cameras and heavy things. You can't bring nothing home. You've all experienced this if you've flown. There's so much opportunity that you're only going to see that stuff when you're flying. Like, hey, do you want to take home this free safe? Hey, I got a bunch of free lead here. You want it? Like, oh, you're flying?
Right,
Oh, too bad.
right,
Because they know you're
right.
flying. That's one of the reasons
Yeah,
they're going to throw that stuff at you, because they know you're flying. That's when you get to go, yeah, I'm driving, no problem. They're like, no, you know. But yeah, that's it's so frustrating. And then you lose the opportunity for a road trip or whatever. And then the being home, and that's the other part of it, getting back to the decompressing and just absorbing it all. The people that fly are home right away, like literally hours after SHOT Show. And people that, we're not even talking about people that don't go to all the SHOT Show. I don't know why people do it, but there's people that'll go like Tuesday and Wednesday, and then they'll fly home on Thursday. I guess you didn't absorb as much, so there's not as much to decompress or whatever. But if you've been for 4 days and you fly home on Saturday, I can't even imagine. And you're probably going right back to it on Monday. Anyway, so I just got to keep throwing that out there. I know it's not an opportunity for everybody, but I'm going to just keep throwing it out there. If there's one piece of advice, I guess that's going to be in my top 3 advices, right? Is to take your time and enjoy the trip and to make memories. You might be doing a YouTube channel or whatever, and that, I mean, I wish I could tell you it's going to last forever. Clover is an exception, and I don't know how long you've been doing your channel, but you're an exception. Most people do their channels for a while, and they either have unrealistic goals or expectations. It's a whole nother conversation probably, but people don't do this forever. Your experiences at SHOT Show, you get to keep those forever. Your participation in the industry, value your freaking voice. Your participation in the industry, you get to keep that with you forever. So, you can do that quickly. You can blink and you can put it all into a blink, or you can slowly close your eyes and get ready for it. Open your eyes and experience it, and then slowly close your eyes and keep it as long as you can, and then come back up for air and live the rest of your life. But you only get to go to SHOT Show occasionally. I wish I could go do most of my experiences again, except for the ones that cost the most. This isn't the only thing I've experienced, but SHOT Show is massive, right? It's the Woodstock of concerts. It's what's another big thing of things, right? It's SHOT Show of SHOT Show. It's a SHOT Show of industry things. It's so that's where I guess the flying, there is something neat about the flying, but even when Ghost is about to say, I'll flip to it. The one year he flew, and he's in Arkansas, and Wilson is in Arkansas, and Nighthawk branched off from Wilson, went to the other side of town. So they're literally all in Arkansas. I imagine there's probably not a bunch of airports there. So that he was on a half a plane from the Wilson crew and half a plane from Nighthawk. They've got a lot of gunsmiths. They got marketing people. They've got the people that run the place. So they've got crews of people going. Plus they're setting up booths, right?
I can't.
So they've got people manning the booths and they've got staff there. That's a little adversarial type of thing. I'm sure it was some tension and some interesting stuff, but it's not unusual to be in a flight like that. You're on that flight. It's hardcore and awesome. You're gaining experiences, but that's on top of the fire hose of SHOT Show. I mean, that just becomes more of the intensity, right? Again, hopefully you got the ability to decompress after that. But yeah, that's the kind of experience that you're never going to get except when you're in that environment of a flight, right? You're not going to get on a bus like that. Nobody's taking a bus.
Well, I just can't believe that the government allows them to fly half a plane. I mean, that seems dangerous.
It's a good point. If you fly it up and down, it's more like a boat in the air. So Snob is saying, I just decided to fly so I can catch up on sleep on the trip back. I love driving out, but the drive back is hell after a week of no sleep. And again, if you're booking, I hear you. And even if you're driving slow, I mean, it is exhausting. And some people, well, I'm guessing the people that have no tolerance or no ambition at all to drive aren't even contemplating this. But I guess I'm pleading to the people who are willing and able and interested to some extent to drive anyway, and they're weighing their options. But obviously most people fly. I'm talking to the potential out there. Most people are flying and doing this through the airports.
It's rough. I mean, so with the driving thing, and G's went live and saved my life many, many times. I've drove 36, 38 hours, something like that straight before. And because I was
And just where
by
I'll go live
myself.
and stream so that there's a show for you
Yeah.
to be in. And most of the country, there's only a couple of pockets in the country anymore where people get bad cell phones. So most of the time, if you're got good battery, you can have somebody to talk to in the car, and that's a lot of it.
Yeah. And so, having somebody with you and somebody that's not just somebody that's with you that's sleeping or that, you're not engaged with in any way or whatever the case may be. But having somebody there to chat with, to debrief, to have
But
fun, to
then the
play card
debrief.
games, to
Well, the
whatever.
debrief. Let me talk about SHOT Show. I mean, you've just been at SHOT Show. You get to drive 36 hours back home, having the people that you care about that care about you and understand what's been going on, asking questions. I'm just saying that probably has some influence on your perception of SHOT Show. The fact that you've had a couple of chances to come home and have sessions like that. You know what I mean? There's people that have never experienced something like that, never had hours and hours of just recollection right after the event like that.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's 100. It's not like that's necessary, and it's not like it's preferred. I'm just saying, like, there's that potential, right? There's all kinds of stuff like that, and you could be just your crew. Again, the bonding of a photographer, the person running the thing, the person who's, I don't know, whatever your situation is there. I can't even imagine. Like, there's two people running it or whatever. Sometimes it's just, this is my hobby or my part-time thing or my ambition or whatever it is, my passion. And then it's the person who you're with, your partner, your spouse, right? Your kids. It's just a way for them to understand what you're doing and either the significance of it or the scope of it or the challenge of it. And, talking about it on the way to some practice or talking about it on the way to go pay a bill or something is a lot different than, that, I don't want to say captive, but literally captive audience when you're driving for hours. I've also grown up doing road trips, so I can see the silver lining. And a lot of people, if you've probably never done a road trip, there's a lot of road trip stuff that you got to get calloused over to. Everybody getting on sync when they want to go to the bathroom and people getting on each other's nerves. So some of that stuff is maybe that's the reason I like it too, though, because a road trip gives you an opportunity to really get on somebody's nerves who you love, and then understand that you love them through all that getting on. Like, that's how brothers and sisters or siblings, right? Is because they, in spite of all that stuff, and that gives you that artificial experience, or that it's not artificial. It gives you that experience, that ability to get on each other's nerves and live through it.
Well, the first time that the wife and I drove, to Vegas, because that's 24 hours pretty much straight going. But the first time we went, coming back, being tired and everything else, it's a wonder we didn't kill each other. Wasn't great. And so that's why we extended and take a little more time and be a little more laid back and all that stuff coming back. I'd say another dynamic of the whole driving thing is just I agree with you if you're used to road trips from childhood or whatever, but another dynamic is just where you live and what you're used to. Like where I live, for most people, an hour or 2 hours, hundreds of miles, let's just say 120 miles, or 150 miles. That's, takes you an hour or two or whatever, right? Some people, they're not used to that. I mean, there's big stores right around the corner, just down the street. Everything's right there within town. I just go across town, 15, 20 minutes, I'm there, that type of thing. Where, for me, you're looking 30, 45 minutes, an hour. I mean, I'm easily an hour from any type of an interstate. And, so for me, driving, and that doesn't, don't get me wrong. I mean, a couple of hours compared to 24 straight is a big difference, right? But I don't think anything about 2 hours. You know what I mean? So if I don't think anything about 2 hours, then 24 hours is more like 10 or 12 to me.
And then the thing is, even if you're not driving long distance, there's people that deal with commuter traffic. So 2 hours in the car ain't nothing to them, even though they only go a couple of miles.
This is true. This is true. Yeah.
So anyway, we're talking about planning. I'm just gonna obviously I'm biased towards have an adventure, but I'm trying to go through and we did hit. I added a couple of more questions here, or start a couple of more, but we'll try to. Well, I'm not gonna say we'll try to be brief, but we'll try to whip through them. How about that? Chicago Mike saying I'll definitely be going to NRA annual meeting in Indianapolis. Let's do another show where we compare SHOT Show to some of these other shows because we've been to all of them, and it isn't the only one for sure, like you mentioned earlier, and they all have their pros and cons. I'll let Clover say something about NRAM. He likes it way more than me. I'll just mention that AM part of it, the annual meeting, is the part where we change the NRA. It's 170, 150 something year old organization. One dude is a dick, and he's got a couple of people that let him do that. There's ways to change that. There's ways to create awareness, and I do not like throwing a $365 million baby out with bathwater because $10 million organizations, are more than willing to let the giant one fall. That's short-sighted, and NRA is ours. We are the NRA. If you're a member or people that are members, that's the NRA, not some douchebag people who own the microphones are suggesting is ruining it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, NRA, we'll definitely talk about it and compare it to SHOT Show. But I'll let Clover wrap up on this one before we move to the next one. Keep in mind, we'll do a whole nother show on this, right?
No, I mean, I'm okay with NRA. NRA is different than, it's similar and there's different. So yeah, we should probably hit on that. I think that, I think the NRA is probably one that's a good one to make. If you've got a short list as a creator of shows you can make, I think NRA's one that should probably be on that short list.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm saying that too, 100%. It's in the top 3, if not the most important one to go to. But I'm just saying, remember that it's also the annual meeting. So when you're there, go to the meeting too. Go to the show, but go to the meeting too. And keep in mind that it's not SHOT Show. It's only people that are NRA members. It's a whole different thing. Chicago Mike is also saying rent a car from Turo. I don't know what that is. Is that an actual thing, or is that a typo, or is that a new rent?
Yeah, that's a thing where you can rent special cars. Like you can rent, super cars or classic cars or fancy cars and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was more like a ride share, like a bed and breakfast, like a Uber or something.
You can rent people have like classic cars and things. Is a lot of what I've seen. Like they'll have old Volkswagen.
Okay, so it is. It's like people's cars, not necessarily a rental agency, but like just some person has a cool car and they rent it.
Yeah, imagine I guess almost like an Airbnb for cars, right?
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. And you're going to Vegas. There are people. Well, I guess I know of people. Nobody I actually know, I don't think. Pink and Marco will rent cars that are good, but they don't rent them. What are the fanciest cars called? There's a name for those. Like you can rent those kind of cars in Vegas. And I know one guy who he's a doctor, and he goes to SHOT Show because he can pay for it, right? I talked about people who can just pay to go there. Doctors are one of them peoples. Um, and what do they call those kind of cars that are like Lamborghinis and stuff? There's a name for like the fanciest of cars. He'll rent those kind of cars all the time, and that's his thing. And you think he actually has a channel about it. He'll just talk about how it is to ride or whatever. And Vegas is, people that don't know, there's not a lot of snow. Roads are pretty smooth. Actually, what am I saying? Are the roads pretty smooth? I think they're pretty smooth
Yeah,
compared
they're
to
not
way
bad.
up north. They're just not as nice as down here. Me and Clover are a little bit further south, so our roads are way better. But it's worth. What do they call those kind of cars? It's worth getting a fancy car. There's a name.
Like a supercar
Supercars, is that
or
what they're called?
a hypercar. Yeah,
Hyper cars, I think what I was thinking of, because you can rent these like race cars. I mean, they're crazy race cars, and it's worth renting.
Supercars are typically in the high six figures, low seven figures, and hypercars are well into the seven figures.
I'm just thinking more of like the Lamborghini, where you're sitting so low, and
That's
it's
a
like
supercar.
literally a race car, and it's like you're never gonna just buy one, but you
That
can
would be
go
a
rent one.
supercar. Yeah,
And they let you drive it around. It's not like some of these where you actually have to go on the racetrack. You can just
yeah.
drive it around town, and you get
Yep.
insurance. So yeah, anyway,
Right.
so yeah, I definitely would recommend that. Um, we're talking about planning. Let's just take a second and go, because you've done it both ways, and you probably experienced. I'm sure you've visited people that are renting nice houses. This is Vegas, and it is a town full of conventions and different things where like weddings and events where people show up and they want to rent a fancy place. So you can rent really, really cheap hotels and really, really cheap bed and breakfast type of things, or whatever they're called, B&Bs, or you can go the other way, or you can get in the medium. Where would you say getting a fancy place is on your priority list or your list of experiences? Like, is it a must do, or is it a never mind, or go ahead and pass on that? Or is
Well, fancy. First of all, is in the eye of the beholder. Is a lot of it, right? I would consider what we had last time with the beautiful view of the strip and everything else fancy, but cost wise and stuff like that, that was not the intent. It just kind of worked out that way. Um, and it was a shared house too, which was weird and interesting at the same time. Um, you know, budget, is the concern. If anything else works out with me, with us, because I don't think I've never went to any event, as a matter of fact, that I've been, on my own. We've always been two, three people, in a room, in a house, and or whatever. Um, and so budget's a concern. If anything else works out, then great. Um, but I mean, there's been some cool places. I will admit that. Um, some of the townhouses we've stayed in, the house at Indy a few years back. I swear to God, if it was 2 story, it'd be the Brady Bunch house. Because it was just the motif, the way it was designed, the way it looked on the outside, and everything else. Imagine the Brady Bunch house in a single story, and that was that house. It was crazy. Um, like I said, the view from the Airbnb last year was awesome. But there's something to be said about some of the hotel stays and room stays that we've had before too that add to the stories. The Tulsa room that Ghost and I stayed in, where there was one light bulb in the whole room. I mean, there was multiple lamps, multiple fixtures, but only one light bulb. And I'm not talking about one that worked, one period. Somebody had went through the previous person that stayed apparently and they took all the light bulbs home except for one, I guess. I don't know. Just some weird stuff like that can happen too. So, but yeah, for me again, budget is the concern to start with. Like, is it affordable? Can we, is there something that we can swing? Um, and then from there you start looking at location. Okay, budget doesn't mean anything if it's in a bad part of town, or if it's got a really bad review, or if the pictures are sketchy looking, or
Well, bad
anything
part of
like that.
town, that can be like personal thing, but bad can be like hard to get to SHOT Show. Bad can be like on the other side of traffic, right? So that's the kind of stuff where
Yeah.
when you're making your reservations, it's worth going live, asking people. Vegas is an easy town. Lots of people go there for lots of different things, lots of conventions, lots of reasons. Lots of people go to weddings and stuff. So people can have experience. You're going to learn about restaurants. You're going to learn like where's some good places to stay versus, for example, by Rio. is on the other side of the highway. I don't know what else to say is over there. It's like on the west side of the highway. It's just you know you got to go across the highway, so you're going to be constricted or funneled through those overpasses. And depending on what time of day or how the traffic patterns are, when the fifth largest show in town is, you might be just sitting there unnecessarily. When if you went the other way, unlimited number of directions to go. So less traffic or less congestion typically. Just little stuff like that. So I'm going to jump onto this one because it was pretty much what we said. So Chicago Mike saying I'd rather fly with Wilson Combat. So the people from Nighthawk came from Wilson. Wilson's one of the largest entities out there. They're one of the largest They are the largest manufacturer presence on YouTube, and they're celebrities at this point. I can't even imagine. There's celebrities in the sports. There's celebrities in the industry. There's celebrities as far as being celebrities and influencers. And all of them, the whole crew has taken that role. Like they own that role, right? Like being celebrities. So would being on a plane with them, Ghost has been on the plane. Being on a plane with them would be like being on a plane with a bunch of baseball players or somebody like famous sports people who are just like, we're famous and we're used to having fans, I guess, whatever you call that, people looking for autographs and walking up to you. Or Nighthawk, which is the one gunsmith, one gun, where they're more like a bunch of, they consider themselves like artisans and craftsmen and stuff. So, the people that would consider themselves sort of the fine wine and smoked aged cheese type of thing, right? I don't know which would be more interesting to talk to, who would be more approachable. I personally had some experience with the Nighthawk people, and they're about as, what do you call that? Like, down home. Like they're as regular as I've ever met people in the industry. So
yeah, I don't know that I've ever
be pretty approachable.
I don't know that I've ever talked to anybody from Nighthawk from Arkansas. I know that I've talked to a couple of people from Nighthawk, but their English was really rough.
Are you saying they got a Arkansas accent?
No, I'm talking about they were German or whatever.
Are you talking about Korth?
Oh, that was Korth. Yeah. I'm not. What am I thinking? Yeah, I'm thinking Korth. I'm thinking
Well,
Korth.
Korth
Nighthawk
is
imports. Yeah. That's why I'm talking. Yeah.
I thought you were talking about because they talk like Arkansas, and I'm like, yeah,
No,
they
you're
definitely
right.
talk like they're from Arkansas. Like
You're right.
You definitely get some experience listening to Arkansas.
I was thinking, how did I make that jump? And yeah, okay, because Korth is Nighthawk. Yeah, okay, so never mind. I digress.
Can you imagine being from Germany and then they're all talking to these Arkansas people? They
Right.
probably go back and speak English like Arkansas people.
Right.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm not making fun of it. It's just a different, it's like a draw. I don't know what the words are, but it definitely, you can know when somebody's from Arkansas.
Well, Texas same way, Oklahoma same
yeah,
way.
Everybody's got a very different one, right? What is that called? Dialect? I don't know if that's what the words are. So Ghost is saying had a 7-hour layover in Denver one year because the plane broke down. It was pretty fun. Oh, I should put it up. Pretty fun because most everyone on the flight was going to SHOT Show. The show started early that year. And yeah, the times that I've flown, it has been, well, the thing is from Tucson, you go to Dallas, and then from Dallas, you go to Florida. So going to Tucson to Dallas is nothing. Sometimes there's somebody going to SHOT Show because of Phoenix or whatever. But from Dallas to Florida is definitely a SHOT Show flight. And I've sat next to people too. So it definitely, if you want to start talking to people about the show, some people who are, and you can't know this, but some people who've been going to the show and it's their job, or maybe they're paying a bunch of money to be there or something, they don't want to start talking about it. Like they're about to have to go talking the whole time. So some people aren't interested. They'd rather talk about fishing or cars or something, intentionally not talk about it. But you wouldn't know that until you start talking to them, I guess. Just jump into Jeff's next one. I published 500 something videos over the years, probably have 750 of them from the different events that I never got around to editing and posting. So that's an interesting point. And since we're talking about planning, and I tried to emphasize the idea that you're going to want to de-stress as a mammal, your brain is going to want to have time to understand what it just experienced. Part of that is trying to figure out how to deal with the amount of content you created, hopefully. getting over the amount of whatever you missed, because that's going to be an issue. You're going to be, you know, upset about the pieces of content you didn't get, but you are going to be collecting a bunch of it. And I don't know if Jeff is just saying that, like, because you get overwhelmed, there's so much of it, you don't have a chance, or you take stuff and then it's just not what you want anymore. And that's going to happen too. And I don't know if we should talk about that in planning, or if that's more of a show about dealing with content, or, you know, the actual files. Maybe we should do a show on that.
Yeah, I think that kind of rolls into, what do you do? What content do you do? What do you do with the content? That type of a show.
I picked a bad time to start eating peanuts, so I didn't know when Clover was going to go for a long time. I threw some peanuts in my mouth. So Ghost is saying, why don't you take this one? And I'll keep eating. Well,
The week after shot is hardest. You want to start getting things done, but you need a few days to decompress before jumping in. Also, the companies take a few days off. So don't email them. Yeah, email them right away. I think the vast majority of people probably do email right away, like as soon as they get home. And so you're talking about a flood of emails that companies already get, and then adding to that flood of emails. So you're going to get lost in the mix. There's some strategies, and maybe we can talk about that more on the content side of things in a show. But there's some strategies when you're talking about communication with companies and email and stuff like that. I think it was mentioned too out there somewhere talking about Great American Outdoor Show. You also got the Overseas Shot Show. You got to realize these companies and these potentially these people that you talk to, um, you never know. I mean, they may be traveling every week for a few months. They may be traveling every month for all year. I mean, who knows, right? And so, quite often, one of the things I think one of my comments to this conversation out there anyway was patience and persistence. Don't assume if you shoot an email off, don't assume that because you haven't heard anything back, they're ignoring you. Until you get an email that says leave us alone, or whatever, right? Don't assume that, because again, potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of emails coming into their inbox. You've got spam filters, you've got people on vacation, people at various shows that they've got to go to, and this, that, and the other. So sometimes it may take some time. Now, don't when I say take a week probably after shot show and then maybe shoot off an email, um, or make that call or whatever. Um, don't when I say be persistent, I don't mean like every single day for a week, but maybe a couple of days apart, a few days apart, and then if you don't hear something in a few days, maybe another week or so, fire off another one, and then maybe if you don't hear anything, maybe a month later, right? Like stretch that time frame out a little bit as you move forward. But I've had situations where it's been summertime. I would talk to somebody at SHOT Show, and it would literally be summertime. I mean, a lot of the shows start to slow down after NRA sometime. You know, April, May. For sure that area. Um, they start to slow down a little bit. So some of these companies, you have that, but you also got to understand there's another aspect to that as well. When you're talking about your follow ups, is the turnover. How many times are you going to go to SHOT Show? Because I'll tell you now, it's going to happen. You're going to go to a SHOT Show. You're going to meet somebody. You're going to swap cards. You're going to have a great conversation, and there's going to be a lot of potential there. And then that person quits and goes to another company, or quits and goes do something all else altogether, or they move to a completely different part of the company, and now they're not the person that's over that. You got to try to build a relationship with this other person.
Let me let me break you there just to say, in your experience now, after a few years of doing this, what's the lifespan of a factory rep or an industry rep with their company?
Ooh,
This might blow people's minds.
a couple of years.
I was going to say 3 years.
mean, yeah,
Yeah,
2 to
so
3. Yeah, I would
most
be okay
people
with
that
that.
you have relationships with are going to book it or quit or change, and
Now,
sometimes they stay and they go somewhere else, and you've got that
Yes.
relationship. But sometimes they're now in the dental industry.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, if they go to a different company, then that's not quite so bad. You still have that contact, and now you've got a contact with a different company, and a lot of times they can put you in touch with who replaced them at the previous
Depends on
company.
the person, because sometimes they
It's
bring
true.
along that stuff and they go, I don't want to talk to anybody you've talked to before.
Yeah, no, that's true. So you do have the potential of that broadening your contacts. The potential is there. It's not a given.
It's just a
Um,
part of it's definitely a part of the industry for
but
sure.
you got to also realize that a lot of the times when you go into a booth and you ask, say, hey, you got somebody that talks to media, marketing, that sort of thing. They've got firms. It's not really somebody that works for the
You got it
company.
so easy. Holy crap.
It's a firm, right, that does this. And so what happens when you make that contact and then it's with a firm, it's not with somebody actually at the company. And the company decides not to use that firm anymore. They move to another firm. So there's some turnover in that respect too. It's not just with actual
Yeah.
employees of the company. So yeah.
And then that company who got canned is like, was it my relationships that I picked the wrong people? And now they start looking for people to blame. And if you're standing there going, hey, remember how we went, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you never know when it's going to get which side of what you're going to get on. I don't know that one so much from experiences watching people have stuff like that. Hey, we're going to start, we're going to help you out by having a picnic. Okay. We're going to invite a bunch of people to the picnic. Oh, we didn't like the picnic idea. Okay. We're never inviting any of these people to a picnic again. It's like, what the hell? All we did is come to your picnic, man. Like we didn't do nothing. Let's see. So Ghost is saying the week after shot is the hardest. Wait, no, that's one we just did.
Yeah, that's the one we just did.
John Z is saying, oh man, I'd like to have a road trip like that. You make road trips like that, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Create opportunities and plan for them. That's what we're trying to give you as advice. I can't give you more advice than to, have adventures on this thing. There's the biggest show. Have adventures going to NRAM, right? And we're living in 2022. Make a video about it, and it's part of your channel, and you make big money on it. Make a separate channel on your adventures, and you probably get more, what do you call it? More ad revenue on the channel about rental cars and travel and restaurants. Ghost is about to ask us about food here in a bit, but traveling and restaurants and the experience of road tripping, those are big time channels. Lots of sponsors over there. I feel like though that you were answering that question. I had to deal with a puppy situation. So thanks for taking that one for a bit. But I feel like that Ghost was addressing one of She Fire's.
Oh yeah. They were between Ghost
and I think this was the point. I think this was She Fire's question.
Between Ghost and Jeff out there. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that's been dropped out there in the chat. That's one of the cool things about having people with experience. So thanks for helping.
And we're going to have a roundtable, maybe in, I don't know, future show for sure, but sometime, but when there's still time to benefit from a roundtable. So, maybe after the holidays here in the beginning of December or something, one of the shows, we'll do a roundtable, and we're going to do one with a bunch of people that have been there a bunch of times. And then we'll do one with a bunch of people that have never been there before and just me and Clover. And then maybe if everybody wants, we can do a mix and whatever.
Maybe bring some industry in too. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think we kind of did that in my notes too, as I was thinking the same thing. Maybe do a show where we just bring people in who are setting up there or who have set up there to give us some insight for both sides. I'm hoping to give some insight to industry that shows up too. You're paying a bunch of money to go there, and SHOT Show will give you some, like, I'm going to just say, cookie cutter, what they can offer, as far as stuff, because nobody wants the same consistent requirements from NSSF. So all they can do is offer middle of the road, here you go. And they do a good job of it, but there's specifics that we can, as a community, help distribute or whatever. So if you're going and setting up and spending a bunch of money and bringing people, let's chat. Let's make it the most effective for you, right, as well, because that makes it effective for media, and that makes it effective for the end user and the customer. All right, so, but the She Fire's point was how to best communicate with the companies, and you kind of talked about how some of your guys' experience, I think, and your points on that.
Yeah. That's going to vary.
You really hit a lot of stuff there with, like, that there's other events. I was just going to try to add If the company is large enough that they're attending every event, they usually have a road crew that knows their job is to be a technical or like recon, and their job is to bring in intel and give it back to the people who do the strategy, or they're able to do the strategy from leading in the front, and they do. So if the people are doing a lot of shows, then you're either going to be talking to the people who are making the decisions, or you're talking to the people who have a main line to the people making decisions, usually. So don't be too concerned that they're going to get burnout. Those people that are going to every show, every company has the potential to go to every show. Some company, at least I should say, every company of some profit level, right, has the ability to go to every show. Not every of them does. Nobody is going because they just love it. They're going because they do it because it works for them, and they have crews that can do it. Does that make sense?
ROI. Yeah, it's an ROI.
Right.
Yeah.
So the ones that are doing it because they can do it. Nobody's just doing it because it's an accident or they feel obligated. There's a massive cost to it. So I guess I would put that out there. But as far as communicating with them, I was kind of, you were saying something in that last comment where, blah, 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 just walk up and ask for the person. Back in the day, they didn't even bring that person. Like, why would we bring our marketing person to SHOT Show? You know what I mean? That was literally the look on their faces, like back in the day. Like, why would we bring that person? That person sits in an office. What are they? Whatever. So it's a different world. But
so, I've got, I mean, I will usually grab somebody in the booth, and I will usually start a conversation with whoever that person might be. And here's the reason. That's a good opportunity that sometimes you catch the CEO and you don't even realize it, or, you catch some higher up. And especially if you're able to impress that person, you have common, ground with that person can see that you have genuine interest in that product, whatever the case may be. If you touch base with that person and that's the CEO, it's like, wow. So, you know, don't just go up. I wouldn't say go up and just bluntly ask for the media or marketing person. Maybe go up and do some small talk type stuff with whoever's standing there, or whoever you might look like they're free or whatever, right? But then obviously lead into the marketing stuff. I can't tell you the number of times that's happened to me, and it's been somebody of some significance. And here's why I say that, because when you talk about communication after the fact, sometimes you'll walk up and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I'm the CEO, but so and so over there, we'll get with him in a minute. She's our marketing person, our media person." And you actually swap phone numbers with the CEO of the company. That type of stuff happens, right? And so ultimately you'll get the media marketing contact, but you've also got you've also got the phone number or the whatever of the CEO, which can be crazy. So, don't limit yourself in who you talk with. Don't limit yourself to just the media and marketing person, because sometimes you have, I guess what I'm saying is the chemistry and what you have in common works better with another person in that company that sort of greases the wheels for the marketing and media side of things. And that can be valuable, especially if the marketing media side of things is farmed out. It's especially true in that case, if it's a totally different company handling that. Like if if somebody high up with the company that you managed to meet, have a conversation with and impress or whatever, if they go to their marketing company and introduce you to their media marketing company person, that is a whole different situation than if you approach the media marketing person on your own. Now you've sort of got the graces. They see that, oh, you've already talked with the CEO. He introduced me, or she introduced me to you, and that sort of thing. So that type of thing can go a long way too.
You can make your own possibilities, determine your own opportunity. What's the word?
Yeah, destiny,
create your own
whatever.
opportunities
Yeah.
by knowing who the CEO is, knowing who the marketing
This is true.
person is. They literally make a phone book every year that tells you who those people. Well, they used to tell you who those people are. Sometimes, depending on the company, they tell you who that is. Sometimes they take pride in it. Not that hard. A quick minute or two, you know who to walk up. I know who I am, and I'm not going to sit around talking to some chump. If I'm there to talk to the inventor of something, I'm going to stand there going, "I'll wait till the inventor's available."
Right.
And it's not like that's a big deal because these are human beings, and they go, "Oh, somebody knows that I invented it. Heck yeah, let me take you a second. I'm
Well,
sitting here talking to my wife about plumbing or something. I'm going to
yeah,
go take a second and talk to this guy who actually knows who I am." And they're like, "Oh wow, I didn't realize anybody even paid attention to who invented this or whatever."
right.
So you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
uh, you don't have to, or you determine what you're going to do at that booth. You're there for 4 days. You can scout a booth and see what's going on.
so
You can see who's showing up and who's, what kind of attention they're getting.
yeah.
I got something else to hit, but go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, name dropping is a thing when it's appropriately used, and so one of those things is you're talking to company A, and you do get introduced to the media marketing, and it's a firm handling that, and let's just say that guy's name's David, right? And it's David's marketing firm, right? And you go into another booth and you have that conversation, and they go, yeah, our media, David's marketing firm handles, our media, and you're like, oh, really? Yeah, I just had a conversation with David, right? And so you can bring that aspect in. So being able to, you don't want to walk in and go, and especially you don't want to do it with other YouTubers. Oh, good Lord. I see that a lot where people name drop, other YouTubers when they're talking to companies. It's like, that's a horrible way to do things.
I
But,
know you're talking to your wife about whatever's going on with your kids, but I know CloverTac. Could we talk?
yeah, right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so and so's my bro. I've seen that before. They're talking to somebody and they go, oh, yeah, so and so's my bro. And I'm like, that just did not look good, man. Did not good. Be your own person. But if there's somebody in the industry and there's a mutual thing there, and you've already established, and that's going on, and that comes up in the scenario I put forth, they brought it up that, hey, David with David's marketing firm handles our stuff. Okay, name drop that. Hey, I just had oh yeah, cool. I just had a conversation with David. Not a problem, right? But they brought it up. You didn't bring it up, so big difference.
Let's see. So I was gonna say, um, then I don't know where this fits in, but I'm gonna throw it in here since we're obviously hitting the 2 hour mark or whatever this show. If you're listening to this and you're showing up as a booth or you're a manufacturer or whatever, you're part of the show and you're looking at this to see how media do their thing. Congratulations, let's talk. But then, I'm glad you're looking into it because that's what it's all about, knowing all the aspects of it. But this, what I'm going to say is if you're the other side of this or another side, because there's really about 5 players in this whole thing, and media is one of it, and that's where we're coming from, and we address a lot of this, or we focus a lot on that side of it. But again, the part of it from the person who's setting up or being there from industry side, I guess, depending on, it doesn't matter what part of industry you're coming from. The media, look at what we're talking about here. The media is discovering and experiencing so much of the rest of the thing. They're your recon, they're your eyes and ears to gather intelligence from the rest of SHOT Show. You can probably bring a couple of people in to go around and be your eyes and ears, and they're going to give you a very educated and filtered uh, intel drop focused on what you want. What media is going to offer is an alternative, something that you can't predict, and something that will be truly unfiltered from what the discretion of your own crew, right? They're going to know what triggers you or you don't want to hear, and they're not going to let you hear about that. Media is going to give you stuff like that you may not want to hear, but it's important. The stuff that might be insignificant and filtered out by your own metrics or your own techniques. But something as simple as having a place in chatting with media and giving them some tasks, bringing them in and having them as part of your support. We talked to John Z, one of our friends in Missouri, had brought up the idea that he'd help out. If there's somebody like Clover and they need to, they're obviously to some extent, making it happen to get to SHOT Show, but they're by no means independently wealthy and just going to SHOT Show as a consequence of being independently wealthy. Something as simple as a few $100s or covering the rental car or covering food for the trip or something like that can be the difference between showing up alone and showing up with 3 people. And giving somebody those kind of resources, what's the return on that, compared to watching them struggle or You know what I mean? Not paying them any attention. So I'm just using Clover as an example, but what is there, 2,000 media showing up? Uh, there's how many booths are going to be paying attention to those 2,000 media? I guarantee you the ones that give media extra attention get extra attention in return.
Oh
So
yeah.
that extra attention can come in lots of different forms. And some of it is just, it can be thinking outside the box like that.
Right.
I just wanted to bring that up because hopefully there are some people listening to this. And again, understanding that media, especially in 2022, what she fires her first time going to SHOT Show will experience and discover are, it would have taken me years because of the way that, everything kind of moved along. And,
Right.
like you say, there's people now that are there. They understand what an individual content creator does and can contribute and do contribute. They're going to be taking advantage of she fires, unfortunately, because they know that they can, right? Hopefully we're going to give her some ways to prevent against some of that kind of stuff, unintentionally, sometimes intentionally, but mostly unintentionally. They're going to not realize that, they're trying to help and they don't, that kind of thing. There's just lots of dynamics at play here. But again, there's a lot of opportunity and, well, I guess we're going off and just already getting at 2 hours. So,
Right.
so as far as communicating, we already talked about some ideas for other shows. If we're hitting stuff that is a tangent that we stifle here and go back to the main topic or something, and you wish us that we would have kept going on it, let us know, because we obviously are hitting too many of these dead ends that I can't keep track of them anymore. Jeff went, I'm going to just keep moving on then. But again, thinking about strategies for communication is a big one. I don't know if it's worth a whole conversation, but I didn't mind spending some time. I don't think Clover did either. We talked about it a bit. All right. So Jeff says, ask each brand when and how they want you to follow up, then do that.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, he's been doing it for a while. And then appreciate that all the reasons we already talked about, that they may drop the ball. It has nothing to do with they hate you. So I don't think anybody goes, oh, now I'm never going to work with these people because they sent me a follow-up email, So, and some people hate email. Some people need a phone call. That's frustrating when you don't, follow it. Maybe how they want to follow up is maybe what he's saying. Some people will not use Instagram. Some people will only use Instagram. Some people won't take phone calls. Some people will only take phone calls. And that's one of those things. If you don't discover their method, then it may have nothing to do with anything. Then you're shouting to the wrong door and they're not listening to that door. I don't know. This one, planning your meals each night is also a thing. This is what goes super chatted here in a second about. Planning your meals each night is a thing also. There are parties and get-togethers, but some of us have rituals now that we eat certain places on certain days. We've kind of addressed that in the past chats or whatever. And then he followed up with a super chat. Thanks for that, which is sending us $5 while we're sitting here talking. So much appreciated. Can you talk about planning your meals throughout the week? See you soon. So I got the hiccups from somewhere, but well, I mean, I don't think we're talking about like we're going to eat this meal on this day or this meal on this day so much as knowing that there's a finite amount of days and knowing that there's a finite amount of time and being realistic with how long it takes to get places and congestion and how busy places might be. I mean, I know that for a couple of times when we were still kind of not really paying attention, or maybe there was no big deal, we would, hey, let's all meet at the whatever Red Lobster. And then you just don't think about it, but bringing 14 people to the Red Lobster on a Wednesday, evening, not even night yet, it's just not, it's kind of random even for Vegas. So, all of a sudden that takes a lot of time or whatever. And then sometimes you walk in and a restaurant is super accommodating and you're like, oh, we have a room for you, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I don't know. When we're talking about planning, I guess that's what I would say is you've got a finite amount of days. You've got that finite amount of time. You got to be realistic. I'd say communicating with others your plans. If you get invited to things, hey, is this realistic? Well, that's 17 miles out of town. Is it worth going there? Well, yeah, because that's amazing, and you're definitely going to want to experience that. I can't believe you got invited. Knowing the significance of what you got an invite to. I know people that have gone to things and they're like, yeah, whatever. I went to there, and you're like, what the hell? Nobody even gets to go to that, and they're like, oh, it was lame. Like, all right, well, go around telling everybody how lame it was. And everybody who's been spending 11 years trying to get to it is going to really respect you now. You know what I mean? Like, do you even know what you're saying when you say that? Like, and that happens.
Yeah,
And yeah, people will walk around burning bridges, just oblivious to the fact that they're burning bridges because they didn't enjoy an evening or something.
right.
Uh, but whatever. And again, it's like, oh, I don't get it. I don't. Nobody in the industry appreciates me. Oh, really? You didn't appreciate something that you were an opportunity you had access to. You went around talking shit about it, and then nobody appreciates you. Like,
Yep.
maybe be more oblivious.
Yeah,
I
the
guess I'm
industry
being kind of vague, but that's actually, I'm thinking of, like, as I'm saying that, I'm describing like 3 or 4 different times.
the industry does communicate. Keep that in mind. I would add what you were saying there. Yeah, infinite number of days, infinite amount of time, or
So anyway, the other way, yeah, there's
finite
only
amount
so
of
many.
a finite amount of days, a finite amount of time, but yet infinite possibilities and options. I think is what I would throw in there, and especially after you've gone for a couple of years, like I can think offhand. It's no problem for me finding something really good and enjoyable to eat in Vegas at any given time at this point. Like, there's no way I can work everything that I would want to go eat and experience and do into the week, especially once you have start factoring in the option of get-togethers, parties, events, after events, things like that that you don't necessarily know about until the day of, and things like that. So I think just being aware that you have a lot of options, um, being being prepared uh, monetarily, just in case, I think is part of it. Like if we're talking about the planning aspect, right? Um, you can eat a meal in Vegas for any varying budget that you can possibly think of, right? So pick your budget, set it. If things happen and you can save money on a meal by going to a party, you can save money on a meal by, whatever or after event. I don't want to necessarily say party because a lot of them are parties, but um, if you can save money on a meal, something like that, that's fine. I mean, you can roll that over into, a more enjoyable experience. If you have the option to plan things with industry, sometimes you get meal invites from in booths at industries. They're like, hey, we're going out to eat, tonight. I think I've had that almost every single year I've been to SHOT Show. That it's like, hey, we're going to this barbecue joint or this whatever. Do you want to go? It's like, yeah. I'm not turning down a free meal. Like, sure. So, um, yeah, there's definitely, I don't know how well you can plan it because there's so much, like I said, there's infinite possibilities and options that are going to present themselves. But I think the
Well,
most
it's like,
important part of
if you could play high school again, what parties would you go to? It's like you can't say, I know this party's going to happen. You just know when the good parties are. Like around Christmas, there's going to be good parties, and that's when you're
right,
going to want to pay attention, and you're going to want to
yeah,
have to go to a couple of parties to get to the good
yeah,
party because you can't
yeah,
just walk into the good party. Maybe put
yeah,
it in some other terms for people to figure out, but it's like, maybe it's, you want to play with a band, but you don't just walk up and play with the band. You can get into playing with bands and then get to, eventually get noticed by the band and get invited to play with the big band or something. There's progression to some of that. You talked about the eating for free. There was a time there you made me think of, because we're cheap, right? And we're not like independently wealthy at any point. There was times when we had more money to go than other times, but we've always liked a good deal or whatever. So the one party I'm not going to talk about, there's different size parties, and there's definitely parties, and there's get-togethers, and there's people that are literally doing business after hours, right? Like we're going to get together and talk about our gear, or we're going to get together and talk about an important event or an important issue, right? So there's work being done, but there's definitely parties. There's definitely just kicking back and playing, right, and having fun in major, like just the most scale, the largest scale I've ever experienced, like, movie level craziness every year. And for a while, once you know how to get involved with that, you know how to get involved with that, right? Like I'm not going to talk about it because it's not my place, but there's things, like anything, like you can know where the good parties are and know how to get to the good parties, just like any other community or whatever. And I'm just going to say, like, that's a whole nother thing. Like I mean, from the scale of the people that are at them, there's thousands of people that's what they go to SHOT Show for, is the crazy parties. I'm thinking most of the people listening to this aren't. But at the same time, I guess reason I'm bringing all this up is my idea of decompressing and absorbing and appreciating it all. One of the ways to kind of flip that around and origami it, fold it back into itself if you don't have the ability or opportunity to take some time after the show, is to take that time during the show. So if you know that on Thursday you're going to be wiped, but you've got 3 other days there and you've got it paced and you're willing to sacrifice it, or not sacrifice it, but willing to use the time this way, go nuts on Wednesday and have like a freaking smashing good time. And then wake up at 3 p.m. on Thursday and try to get your shit back together so that you can still make use of it. But you're allowed to plan kicking back, and it's Vegas, and there's some massive parties. And I'm not saying they're all on whatever day I just said, because I just picked a day at random, but there's parties on every single thing. There's different things to do. And part of it is letting your mind let go of the schedules and stuff. I don't know if you've ever done that. Maybe I'm assuming, but I don't know if you've ever really talked about doing that. I know Ghost has gotten nuts a couple of times, but you guys don't. It's actually, they don't hang out all the freaking time. They only hang out during their office hours. I don't know if
Right.
people know.
Yeah.
But have you gone to any of the parties and just got drunk, or like just gone off the chain or whatever for a bit and then had to come back?
I don't do that normally. So
I don't ever do that either. I'm probably like 3 beers in and I'm like that. But I'm just saying, like, go into that kind of thing and experiencing it is a thing. Like, it is a valid piece of shot, and it's some
I've
people
been
it is
to,
shot.
yeah. I mean the one, the one you're talking about, where I think Ghost had the Marine Corps party or whatever before that one, and then he showed up at that one. But I mean, it was open bar,
That's
like.
not like that. That's not like that.
Well, I'm just saying,
But anyway, go ahead.
he's the one we went to was open bar, live band, open bar. You could have gotten, and many people did, completely freaking plastered there if you wanted to. But I mean, that's not my scene. I don't do that. So, have I been to that sort of thing? Yes, I've been to that sort of thing.
And like I say, that's just a whole nother facet of it or whatever. And like I say, potentially a way to give yourself some time to, I don't know, the mental part of it, I guess, can be a lot for people. And again, with the pressure of spending a bunch of time and money there, and it seems like forever because you're going to have 5 days, but range day is 1 day. By the time you get your bearings, it's half over. By the time you did everything, you're thinking about what you didn't do, and now you better start moving video off your phones or whatever you're doing, because you're about to hit SHOT Show. If you're trying to do stuff additionally, meeting with people and that kind of stuff, getting your badges, trying to figure out a flat tire or whatever comes up, I forgot a charger, that kind of stuff. Now you've got day one and whatever. So, it can go by pretty quick. It seems like a long time, and before you know it, it's Thursday, and before you know it, it's the last day, and people are already packing up.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're at the 2 hours, so we'll attempt to get through ones. Again, appreciate everybody asking questions. We're not really budgeting our time very well. I'm going to blame Nancy Pelosi for this. But the next one was from a good question from Chicago Mike, asking, are y'all bringing firearms in case of going to gun ranges while out there? Well, I'm about to say, do it, if you have the opportunity, but be aware that, be realistic. There's a GSSF match that sometimes happens either coincidentally or strategically so that it's happening there. But I'm sure there's some opportunities, especially as a content creator, with all the different ranges and stuff that are in town. Not necessarily the rental ranges, because they oftentimes don't want anything to do with your guns. They have their own guns, period. Right? They're not ranges with rentals. There are some ranges with rentals, though, and that's a whole nother thing. So again, if you are listening to my advice and you're going to spend some time in Vegas, either before or after SHOT Show, whole nother topic, right? A whole nother topic, literally, because let's say you get an arrangement with a range, you're going to show up and you're going to bring some guns, you're going to do something, you're going to spend some time on their range. You're concerned about leaving your guns in the hotel room. Well, how about they clean your guns for you while you're there? They're going to be in their books, but if you're not a weirdo about having guns and books and stuff, then now your guns are at a gun shop and they're safe. You're doing your thing. Whenever you leave town, you go pick up your brand new clean guns, freshly cleaned, I should say, guns back off their gunsmith books, and you're booking it back out of town with your guns, and you're ready to go if something goes down. I'm just saying not everybody goes there without their guns, right? Most people that are going to SHOT Show are in the industry. Enough said. Um, as far as going to the ranges, I think your answer is out there where there's not enough time and stuff. But again, going back to my origami folding some me time at SHOT Show, if you know you're not going to be able to eat the whole pie, and you're only going to be able to get some sample spoons of some different flavors while you get ready for the next year and what you're going to be able to do, maybe there is some time to go to a range on a Wednesday or on a Thursday afternoon or something. And even if you're not taking my advice to stay after, you get some range therapy during the show. It's a big ask. It's a big, but some people, that's the perfect therapy, right?
Yeah, it's
And
true.
it's kind of zen. How many people are going to take some time in the middle of shot to just go shooting? Seriously, not that many people are taking any time in the middle of SHOT Show to go shooting.
Yeah, it's
You
probably
could
true.
make that a whole thing. It'd be a tough sell to make that a whole thing, but you could definitely. So I know most of your advice is going to be don't bring them. I'm the dude who brought like my collections to SHOT Show before, just because I thought it was cool to bring all my NAAs to the place where uh, dude from NAA, Sandy, all the people that make the NAAs, and then the people from Frontier Arms are all at the same place. And, I don't
Yeah.
know if anybody has ever done that before, but at least history knows that on this rock flying through the space or whatever, that at one point, every gun that was made, every revolver made by all the different people except for Dick Casul were in Vegas all together. And I don't know if that could ever happen because the gun shops didn't have all those guns. I had some pretty obscure little revolvers. So
Yeah.
I've done some dumb stuff like that. I've brought kits and stuff and built kits and stuff, that kind of thing, because there's builders in Vegas and things. So there's some opportunities for guns at SHOT Show. It's just that it's definitely something you got to keep in mind because of hotels and that kind of thing. And time wise, it's definitely not a shooting show. There's the range day. You're not bringing a gun to range day.
Right.
But on the opposite side, you're going to be able to pull more triggers than almost any opportunity on the planet.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said about bringing, depending on the event. I mean, I brought stuff to GRPC in 2019, right? And while we didn't have time to
We
go out
went
in the
shooting in
desert,
Tucson after, yeah.
we didn't have time to go out in the desert and shoot, but we did go down to Tombstone. So I've got pictures of my guns in Tombstone, which is, I mean, when would that ever happen? You know what I mean? That's kind of cool.
Well, anybody driving from Florida, take 10 to Tucson, go up, and when you get to Phoenix, instead of going across to California, just keep going straight up, and you get through Prescott or something, and you get to Vegas. So yeah, anybody that's driving, you've got Tombstone along the way, you've got Amarillo, El Paso if you're taking that route.
Bring
Yeah.
your lever actions and your single actions and take pictures of them in Tombstone. How cool is that, right?
So again, we're going a little bit over, but hopefully people are appreciative of it. We've got another $5 super chat from 2AEDU, so thanks for that.
Well, we've only got a few flagged out there, so we can knock them out real quick, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Do you see the ones that are starred?
Yeah, I'm able to see the starred ones. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nobody ever starred anything, I don't think, when I've been in somebody else's chat. That's cool. So you can prep them. You know which ones are coming. You can't click them, but you can see them. Okay. Can you tell? Well, you can't tell that you can tell I'm clicking on it because it goes on the screen.
I can see. Well, it's highlighted when you put it on the
now
screen.
it's on screen. But I was going to say when I hover them, you can't tell when I'm like hovering because it changes for me. Because that would be kind of neat because then I could kind of portray to you which ones I'm about to stage. But anyway, that's kind of behind the scenes here. Jeff is saying NRA lets civilians in, makes it hard for media to do our thing. That's an interesting point. I see what he's saying. So the NRA show it's an NRA show. It's the annual meetings for the NRA, and to make it cooler, they brought in all the media because they were already going to SHOT Show and all these other shows that we're going to talk about at a different show. So they let all the NRA members in, and it's like kids, right? Like little kids can show up. I don't know if babies can show up, maybe, but like little kids for sure.
Oh yeah, they can. Yeah. There's no age
so it's
limit.
everybody. So it's just more like a weird gun show where you're not able to buy anything. But maybe you can buy some stuff.
You're not buy some stuff. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But
it's weird.
You can buy like a hat or like a belt or something, but you're not buying.
You can buy flashlights and gear and stuff, though.
But you're not buying guns. Nobody's
guns,
like walking home with guns for sure, and you're not even like arranging to buy.
Well, I say that I was at one year. Was it Black Rain? Maybe they had prices on their stuff, and I think it was. I mean, you couldn't take it like take it home that
But they'd
day,
ship it to your gun dealer
but
or
they would
whatever.
ship it to your. Yeah, they would
Oh,
arrange
boy.
to have it shipped to your
Hell,
FFL. Yeah, yeah,
FFL, yeah.
yeah.
Um, but the main thing is what he's talking about is just when there's regular people in there, they could care less if you're trying to take a picture or something.
Oh
Plus,
yeah.
they insist on yelling and screaming and like, come back over here, or like,
Well, they don't
yes.
understand, right? They're
Well,
not
it's
a
their
part
show.
of
They can do
the.
whatever they want. It's the
Yeah,
NRA
they're not
show.
a part of the industry. They're not a part of the media. They don't understand that that's
And
a thing,
NRA
right?
media exists. They give you like a little donut and a little room, and they like give you a badge, but they don't really. It's not a show for that. Like they're there to let the NRA members play around. It's a fun thing. It's what it is, and it's also an NRA meeting. So remember, it's an NRA meeting, and if everybody in that exhibit hall walked into the meeting room, guess who wouldn't be the president of the NRA? Just saying. So anyhow, but the deal is that the regular people walking around do not care about you taking a video, and they're loud. Now you go to SHOT Show, and yeah, people understand that we're media, but they could care less because for a minute there, media actually had people's respect, kinda, maybe not internationals, but like people in this country's respect, but not always. Now it kind of went the other way since everybody can do anything and people hate social media and blah blah blah. Now it's I don't think there's any respect to media. They give you the whatever, the authority to take pictures or whatever. They understand that media has a role, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you're videoing something, there's as much a chance. Well, internationals have different. What's the word? Like, they don't. What's the word? Like, uh, they're. Oh, I can't think of the word. Like, they're impolite, but it's because they have a different culture, and I can't think of the right word. But their cultures are so different that they don't care. They're just weird. They'll go stand next to stuff for
Yeah.
whatever reason. They just do not care. But then there's also just people that hate you, and if you're taking a video, they'll just walk in front of you and they think it's funny. And it's just a big show with a lot of people, so you will get the people that get in your way. But I would agree that at SHOT Show, most people are going to walk around you if you're doing something on a video or something.
Right.
But it's still NRA show. You've talked about it before, and I'll agree. Like NRA show is a great warm up for SHOT because you have to go figure out how to record in noisy places. You have to figure out how to record things steadily without setting up a big contraption because people are going to trip over it. You're not going to be steady in the long run because people are tripping over it. But I don't know. You've done enough. You've gone to more NRAs than me. I've only been to a couple. Is it way better at SHOT Show or about the same? Because I would say they're about the same as far as taking videos and stuff.
As far as doing videos at the event, I think SHOT's probably easier, quite
Way easier.
honestly.
Okay. Well, you
Yeah,
guys have
just
done enough
because of
of
the
both.
public. I can't tell you the number of times trying, and I don't do a whole lot of that anymore, right? But I can't tell you the number of times with SHOT Show. It's not an infinite number, but it seems that way. It seems like every single video there's multiple takes and things because people just randomly will come up and grab something off the wall, and it's obvious. You've got a tripod up, a camera, other stuff. And they'll come up and grab stuff off the wall, or they'll come up and start a conversation with the person you're talking to, just like interrupt the. You're like, oh my god, like really, or screaming kids, or just any number of
Just because they're not thinking about it. And then,
weird little
again,
things. Yeah, it's
you don't
not.
need to. It's not like there's a
Nobody's
scene
doing
that's like,
anything.
worry about
The
it.
vast majority of it. I mean, you're right. I guess some people can do it just out of spite or out of malice or whatever. But the vast majority of it's not. It's done out of obliviousness or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they're oblivious to the fact they're screwing up your video.
And then let's see. So then the last one I've got start here is Smeggy saying, as far as talking about turnover in the industry or whatever, turnover can be good if you have a good relationship with a smaller company and then that person or one of the people you have that relationship with books over to the bigger company. It can be a foot in the door. And in that circumstance, you didn't lose necessarily the relationship with the smaller company. Your point of contact may have changed, but
Right.
Unless they hate everybody who they were associated with or something, which doesn't happen all that often really, but does happen. But you still probably got a relationship with a different way with that smaller company. But again, you're only going to have a relationship with that individual until they've earned their way or whatever. Now, on the other hand, a lot of times people jump because, just like anything, you're never appreciated in your current role. As a new person, you're appreciated as new, grass is greener type of thing. So you typically get a bigger pay jump from quitting and going somewhere else than waiting for your raises at a place you're at, right? So people that are younger, people that are doing stuff, and people that are ambitious are going to jump around. And one of the reasons that's a factor, or one of the reasons that's a piece that's literally the way the industry is because those people are going to bring people with them. So the person who's at the show and making all these contacts knows that they're making personal contacts with people, and they have this relationship with the people they're working for because they represent that person, and they're having these relationships, and they're juggling the juggle or the game or whatever. Now, whatever changes and they decide it's time to move on, often it's amicable. Like I say, it's they know that they're not going to keep getting raises for doing whatever they're doing at place B, so they start going to place A, which is, factor is 10 bigger, and nobody's going to think, hey, you're ambitious, you're going on with your, remember us, have a good life. And they bring those people with them. And a lot of times when you're able to go from the small company to the big company in that kind of a role as an industry rep or whatever, is because you've got this Rolodex or whatever, a contact list. I keep saying Rolodex and people think I'm talking about a watch, I think. But, you've got this contact list that you're bringing with you, and you're part of that. Value your voice. Oh, I'm just whatever with my one camera, except you're in the contact list of somebody who's rocking and rolling. And, whatever, take that where you may. So I'm sure you got something to say about that, but I agree, but it's not a for sure thing, but it's definitely like an investment in a stock or something, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh man, I thought you'd go more on that one. So let me go backwards then. So She Fire said, coming from Florida, but the drive may be 1 year. I hear what you're saying. And that's the tough part about being in the corners. I'm not quite in a corner, but I feel like it when I'm looking at like New York or Florida. I mean, that's the whole country. And I've definitely driven that before, and it's an adventure. Again, depending on how far you want to take this and how ambitious you want to be, sponsored road trips exist. They're a thing. They've been around forever. And if you're going to be bouncing a reasonable amount of time per day, you can be jumping between gun shop and gun shop. Some company that sells stuff at each of those gun shops would be a potential sponsor for an adventure like that. The gun shops themselves, how fun would it be to arrange throughout the year a gun shop in each state as you hop over to SHOT Show and then hop back, right? And do some sort of something with those shows or with those shops. And again, a hop of, let's say, from Florida to, realistically, let's say Georgia, and then Texas, and then New Mexico and Arizona, and then Nevada. That's a slice that they only have to offer. It's like each one of you gives them a chunk of that. None of them is paying for the whole trip, but they're each paying for a leg of it or a portion of it. And you've got all those opportunities to create all kinds of stuff and relationships and potential, and talk about de-stressing. It's a whole nother level when you can come back and only have to drive a few hours, do some kind of meeting up with the gun shop, go to dinner or whatever, set up in a hotel or someplace and do video or something, do a live show, do something, edit, and then get up and leisurely drive to the next state and do it all again, knowing that you're getting, that you're creating a big channel, you're doing something, investing in the project, and then hopefully, had that either sponsored or partially or completely funded. So again, depending on how big you're doing, how big your goals are, how big your ambition is, you're doing that with a couple of people. I think that's the future of the way this stuff is going. I don't think the future is giant companies, giant manufacturers, giant middlemen funding, celebrities to do meet and greets. It might be, but I don't think that's the future. I think that as people who can appreciate the authenticity of individuals' adventures and appreciate the, being a more intimate part of a project or a channel online, I think that's going to grow. The new platforms, the new social platforms, are to foster that, not to create new places for giant entities to, YouTube up the place. I don't know, Clover, you've definitely got a different perspective on it from a different, I don't know if you have a different perspective, but you have a different perch that you're watching all this from. Are we going way off in too much of a tangent more than 2 hours into this one?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. But anyway, I think that a road trip would still be pretty cool. Maybe a whole nother conversation besides SHOT Show, just a whole nother conversation on
Yeah,
is a road trip a good idea for a 2A channel or a gun channel?
it's all an evolution, right? And it's one of the things where it's an evolution. I mean, who knows when you get into a couple of years in. I mean, maybe things are going real well, and whether you're doing it part time and it moves to full time, and then you even get to the point to where it could completely take over your life. It's full time, but it doesn't really take over your life, and so um, work ethic plus you know making the right decisions and all of that is gonna kind of dictate where you go and what you do. Um, and some people don't want to be at a certain level. You know what I mean? I mean, they don't want it's like that. Will take the fun out of it, or whatever the case may be, and so they don't really they're not. We all have our own goals, and I guess is what I'm saying, and our own end game and where we want to be, and you need those as a channel. You need some type of direction, but at the end of the day, those can change. Those can change from week to week, month to month, year to year. And I guess falling back to because this is talking about SHOT Show. SHOT Show is one of those places that can certainly change your goals or prompt you, right, or push you to change your goals, I should say.
Yeah, because once you've gotten a better perspective on what all's out there in the playing field. I mean, I certainly change my goals constantly, or change my what I'm doing based on, like, you'll go to SHOT Show and go, "Are you kidding? That's who's doing this?" Like, then that's good anybody can do that. Or like, oh, this hasn't been done yet. Like, some things become really obvious once you're just there, like hanging out in the media room.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely be ready to maybe that's the advice. Be ready, be open to adapting. She fires through $10 in. Thank you very much for that. Do appreciate it. And I'm glad that I had scrolled back up as Clover was talking there, because where we had left off at with Smeggy's, the very next point was a great question from She Fires, asking or saying, I'm working on my elevator pitch when approaching brands. Could you share tips? So my question is, should we put this to a separate one? Because this is an awesome, I mean, we'll answer the question, but this almost seems like a whole nother one, like how to do relationships, what kind of realistic expectations, like what kind of potential is out there. Is that something we should tackle, or is that more of a too individual for people, or too specific to
I
the
think it's
individual?
definitely going to be individual and specific. But I mean, I also think that it's important. I think that, and everybody's going to have their own opinions on this too, right? So you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different things. I think as far as that elevator speech or your pitch speech, I think you need to know what you do, um, content wise. You need to know knowing numbers and stuff like that are far less important than most people think. You need to know that what you do, you need to understand and know what you bring to the table. Um, and you need to know, and that includes um, audience demographic, right? And then that's tailored, like having an elevator speech that is the same thing for every single booth you walk into. I don't think is an optimal approach. I think you need to be able to come up with that elevator speech in a way that you can. It's almost like Mad Libs in a way. You
You
can,
want a index card stack of elevator speeches.
yeah, I guess, or like I said, more like a Mad Libs, right? Where you remember Mad Libs where they had it and you
Yeah,
inserted
you kind of
words,
fill in
certain
the blank
words. Yeah, you
according to
fill
the
in little blank.
circumstance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so you fill in the blanks according to that company or that product, right? Because it's going to be a little different. I mean, your
Well,
approach.
and even not the company, but the person. Like, if the person is
Yeah, yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
I hate YouTube, I got a big I hate YouTube button on, you're not going to walk up with here's my YouTube speech.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But if it's one of them things, because you've got to tailor that. If you walk in and like me, and I go, oh, it's all FUD guns and the shotguns, lever actions, revolvers, and that's kind of my demographic and this, that, and the other, and I end, and I'm talking to an AR-15 company, right? Um, okay, like that. Why are you here, right? Um, but if I walk in and I say, "Hey, got a lot of hunters, competition style stuff in there," and I may mention that I do a lot of lever action and stuff, but this may be a good opportunity for your company and working with you to expose those people that are mainly into shotguns and revolvers and lever actions to something a little different, right? Because companies, that's how companies grow. That's they're always looking to tap into another market and sell to another demographic or sector of people. So, that's a good example of why you would want an elevator speech that's fluid, that you can kind of tweak it just a little bit. But the big points are knowing what you do, knowing what your channel brings to the table, and knowing um, what basic demographic that you kind of serve. And if you know those three, then putting the elevator speech together around that, I don't think is that difficult.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a tough one. So as you're saying that, I mean, everything you said is valid there. I just don't know what to add to that or how, which ways to not take it into too many different directions. But I'm going to go back to my stack of having a being aware that there's going to be a different message almost to not every single person, but you're going to have the messages to the person who you're going to have different replies or different conversations with different people. And that's something else that it gets into a whole nother realm. Then as I'm thinking about it, maybe it is a bigger thing, but you're going to a giant event with a lot of people, a lot of different agendas. At some point, I can't imagine Clover has gone this long and this many shows without talking about the smoking area. Because there's opportunities that are,
That's
you know
true.
what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what to call
Yeah,
them. They're just
100% though.
auxiliary adjacent. Because there's,
Yeah.
you don't have to smoke. You can just think about, like, I kind of talked about the bus, or like you're there, you're experiencing something
Yep.
in common. You're hanging out at the airport. You got a flight delay, like Ghost talked about having the layover. You got these experiences. And as soon as that happens, well, we're the people that had the layover on the way to SHOT Show 2017 in Denver. Boom. Like now you're in that crew of people. Now, 7 years from now, when you're all going to Denver once a year, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know that's about to happen. You know what I mean? Like, so you got to be ready, and you got to know that there's that potential. And then you got to know that you make your own potential. You make your own, opportunities. So if everybody's sitting around in Denver moping, or all sitting around like they don't understand that they're all going to SHOT Show and they could all be learning what the hell's going on, and you go, who else going to SHOT Show? Who wants to like throw business cards in a thing, and we'll all give each other elevator speeches or something, like you could be the person that creates that meetup in Denver, and it becomes the new, that, where do you think like POMA comes from? Like, just poof, somebody decided POMA needs to exist, or was it 7 or 8 people going to eat dinner together, and then it turned into 12 people, and then it's too big to eat dinner, let's rent a place, and now it's POMA? I mean, POMA didn't actually start like that, but that's how things start. So yeah. Clover's probably telling me we got to keep going. Yeah. Oh, so you got a thing coming up, you're saying?
Well, I'm already doing it.
Sorry
That's
about
why I've
that.
been AWOL off and on.
Okay. Um, Jeff's got a couple of things. So I just wanted to hit on them because they're basically the same thing. So I'm thinking we could almost probably approach the whole idea of that, of the elevator speech and how to interact. We'll do that as another topic, because that is a great question, and it's way more than some tips, I think. And we're going to have other people on, and that's what Jeff's kind of talking about here. So appreciate Clover sticking with us. I think I know what he might be doing, or he's doing something there, but he'll kind of just listen as I hit Jeff's answers to kind of what we're kind of addressing here. So Jeff's been going for a while, and he's gone with a bunch of folks and with different roles in different ways. So lots of good insight. And then he's gone to a lot of different shows to compare the SHOT Show with, the other industry type of events and stuff. and then some other type of events too. So anyhow, he brings up, so I'm looking for clues as to what the brand's goals are when I talk to them. So in other words, having that ability to decipher, their through their branding and through their decisions and how they set up and how they're running their booth, what they're going to be looking for, so you can make your most effective conversation with them. A lot of it is understanding that it's a type of relationship that gets created or that gets monitored or kept up to date at a SHOT Show. It's not the same as meeting somebody in a different circumstance. It's a unique circumstance, and people that are been there for a while kind of have their methods, and there's probably a number of different methods of ways people deal with SHOT Show as vendors, as manufacturers. So the way that media in this case is going to interact with them, that's one way to do it, is kind of looking for their clues, and it's usually in their branding and their decisions that they make on the booth, number of people they've got there, the emphasis on different things. I don't know if Clover wants to add anything to that part. I'm sure he's got his own strategy for that. We'll have Jeff on when we have the people on who've been to SHOT a bunch of times, and I don't know what all answers or what questions we'll be getting on that show.
Agree.
Go ahead.
I do agree with what Jeff was saying out there about the focus more on the relationship than transactions and things like that. And this may be different for different people, and I'm not saying it's going to be right for everybody, but for me, the relationships, the companies I have relationships with are the best, have the best transactions, have accompanied the best relationships that I have with companies. So, whereas the other ones, okay, I mean, you get stuff to review, or you may get a sponsorship, or you may get, a sponsored video, or you may get something, but I don't know, it's just not as fulfilling. It just doesn't mean as much. I don't know. I don't know how to word it, but it's just much better when you actually have a relationship with that company, and more importantly, with the people in that company, for the reasons we talked about earlier about turnover and whatnot.
You see, I think I know where Clover's coming from, and if you've been watching Clover's stuff, you kind of know how his I would like say his approach to doing SHOT Show coverage, I guess. If you look back at our coverage, or my coverage specifically from our coverage, because we would go with multiple people everybody would film their own way, and we just put it up on the channel together. So you can kind of tell my stuff from other people's, but we all kind of went with my style, I guess. We all had our own methods of doing it, but our thing, and my preference has been, and everybody else on the team's preference was always, some of them would point the camera at the person. They thought it was cooler, they thought it was more appropriate or whatever. I've never done that. In fact, I think I'm one of the few people that will do a whole review just looking at the knife or whatever. And I've always gotten the feedback from reps like, oh, that's refreshing. And anyway, so the reason I'm bringing this up is when you talk about when Jeff said the word transactions, that's a word. Transaction with, let's say, Spyderco or Benchmade or Gerber was, can I get a video? And they'd be like, yeah, of what? And I'd be like, I don't know, the entire product line. And that first time was sort of awkward, and they were like, what? And then once we figured it out, and once I figured it out, and once we accomplished it a couple of years in a row, I could just walk up and kind of give her the wink, and she'd look at her watch and go 30 minutes, and I'd come back in 30 minutes, and 20 minutes later I had the entire Spyderco catalog videoed, and it would be her narrating it for me with little 3-minute videos. And that was my thing. I liked doing that. I was able to effectively put up a Spyderco catalog with video every year, and I did that from I don't know, up till maybe 15 or something. And I quit doing that, but that was a lot of fun, and she appreciated the shit out of it. I don't remember her name anymore, but it's the lady that basically was the boss of Spyderco. And same thing with my guy at Gerber until, I quit doing it. I'm sure that Gerber guy's gone. Like we said, these people usually last now. At a big company, they'll usually last a little bit longer because they know what's good and they got to the company they wanted to get to, and they're not necessarily looking to downgrade all the time. Sometimes they are, but if they're young and they're on their way up, they're going to stick at a big company. So anyway, sometimes your contacts at a big company are awesome. You have them year after year, and that's where again, I could walk up and be like, "Hey, how many are we going to be able to get this year?" And he'd know my whole deal, and he'd be like, "Okay, if we're going to do 3 or 5 minutes each, how about we get 20 of them this year?" I'm like, "All right, cool. I'll come back tomorrow, or I'll come back in an hour." And he'd have all of his stuff sitting there. I'd throw down my piece of multicam, and we'd sit there for 20 minutes and have 20 videos made. It was awesome. So anyway, I think that part of the transaction thing, you cannot literally have that kind of relationship. And I thought that was awesome. And I don't know, I think people appreciated it. I mean, I was certainly making money on YouTube doing that. Literally, like those videos made money when I would just post little 1 to 3 minute videos about knives or flashlights or whatever, all the stuff on the gear channel that can actually get, what do you call it? Ad revenue, or at least back in the day could get ad revenue. But everything Clover said is valid also. I just wanted to throw that layer in there, that if we consider videos transactions, then there's that opportunity. So then Jeff is saying, be ready to talk about how you'll bring value. What you do is less important than how you will help the brand reach their goals. So in other words, like I think he's saying is what you're going to do is your business, but how are you going to help them is what they're interested in also. I mean, they're there to do business. They paid good money to be there. They're making a product. They're not just there to entertain you, right? You're there to help be part of the industry.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that's, it's in my elevator speech, I guess you could say, is like, I want to work with them because, I mean, you can approach a company, right? And a company can just send you a product, right? And then it's all hands off. And it's like, that's fine. And I do have companies that I have good relationships that do that, but through that relationship process, it's understood what I bring to the table, what I'm going to try to do for that company, whether that's get exposure in a different light or in a different way, or maybe get exposure in front of a different audience demographic. Like, how am I going to help them? I'm there to help them. Sure, I want to grow my channel. I want to do all these other things. I mean, obviously, but at the end of the day, I also want to help that company, because if I don't help that company, and companies just continue to falter and not sell their goods and go the way of the dodo, then what am I going to do? I mean, I'm going to switch over to another channel is what I'm going to do personally, and start doing other things that related to other industries and hobbies. But as far as being a gun tuber, being a part of the firearm industry, we don't support that industry, right? And we need to know what their goals are, kind of what they're thinking as well. So that gets into the relationship thing, I think, with what Jeff was talking about, earlier. Um, and I think once you establish that relationship, it's like a given. And I mean, and once you have that, companies know they can just, hey, we're going to send these out. Are you interested? You're like, yep, send it on, and I already know, right? So when you establish those new relationships, I think it's really important to kind of get a sense of what's that company looking for. Like, are you wanting, are you strictly wanting, thousands and thousands or millions of views on a video, or are you looking for somebody that can work with this product in a way that appeals to this demographic over here that maybe you're not currently thinking about, or you're currently targeting with your marketing and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of nuance in there, and I think it's important to talk with those companies about that nuance. Maybe not at SHOT Show, maybe not at the event, but definitely in follow up stuff and before you start putting out the content.
All right. And then I didn't want to, I was ditching off to listen to that, whatever voice message there. So I didn't catch all of that, but I was going to then try to do a thing where I go, you know what, you have the opportunity to have a birthday week. This is the internet. So one, you want to gather in as much opportunity to get birthday loot as you possibly can. So celebrate a birthday week. Also, your date of birth is a personal piece of data that is your business. So sharing your birthday week with the world and your, the actual date with your family is appropriate. So with that, I guess it's Clover's birthday week. So happy birthday week to Clover, whatever day it is your business. But you want to do whatever you want to do. But I'm going to encourage people to celebrate a birthday week. It gives those people on the internet a bigger target to say happy birthday, and it also keeps the people that have no business knowing, keeping your business your business.
Well, it's kind of that way anyway, because the same week, I've got a younger brother and my dad's birthday all and mine all in the same week. So yeah, plus Thanksgiving.
Well, I empathize, that's the right word, to people. One of my people in my family had, actually two people in my family have birthdays on big ass holidays. And while they didn't care, I cared for them because I always thought that was heinous that they get, especially when it's a birthday, because you don't get nothing when a birthday, let's say, is around Christmas or something, and that's a ripoff. So I believe that there should be a law, and it should be mandatory that if your birthday is anywhere even around Christmas, that you get an extra birthday in July or someplace that you're choosing, that everybody can celebrate your birthday and not have to, because there's other things, reasons for Christmas, right? And it just gets blown off for lots of other people, or there's lots of stuff going on in the holidays. And anyway, I think that's a massive ripoff that was a fault of the olden days and the ways calendars used to work. But again, we got the ability to change our destiny, and people that are born around holidays should get a separate birthday. I'm not saying that the government should pay for the party. I'm just saying that it should be mandatory that they get a separate day of celebration for themselves. But with that, happy birthday, and I guess happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I guess we're going to be back next Tuesday, and we'll decide what we're going to chat about. I guess at some point we'll start figuring out when we're going to have this conversation with others. We might not want to do that one at Tuesday morning, right? Like probably be more convenient or more courteous to do that one at a reasonable hour in the evening for people that we're going to be inviting in to talk about SHOT Show. Or do you think we should make it kind of a barrier to entry? Like, do you care enough about SHOT Show to wake up on a Tuesday morning and talk? We're not really necessarily doing this for the audience as much as to archive this stuff, I think.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean,
or at least the live audience. I mean, obviously we appreciate the people that are listening, but I guess we're saying it's like, we're not setting this up at Tuesday morning for the live audience to be the largest possible. We appreciate the people that are here, but we understand this is not the place to put a live show.
There's something to be said about barrier of entry. I do kind of like that deal. I mean, if we do this at a primetime hour, the chat has been really awesome out there. With Sheepfire, Chicago Mike, Ghost, Gear Reports, Knob, all helping each other, giving their insight. It's been the side chat has been just as informative and productive, if not more, than what we talk about. And if we do this at prime time, you're going to get trolls like, "Oh, screw SHOT Show. SHOT Show is horrible." And people that have never been and want to badmouth, and it's just gonna change the ambiance of that side chat.
That's a good point. So we'll leave it up to folks who want to give us some insight on it. Do I have a poll going? It just made me think about, I think I might have set up a poll for this thing. I totally forgot. I set this up in the middle of the morning. Folks who want to. I do have a poll, and a bunch of people have said stuff on the poll. So 2.5 hours into this show, we're going to talk about the poll. Oh, and I just started seeing all the little goofiness with the super chats. Thank you for that. Little avocado waving at me. Let's see, meeting. Okay, so what do you want to try at SHOT Show? So anybody, this is potential. This is people that have already been and are actually, contemplating what they're going to do, or, potentially what you would do. What do you want to try at SHOT Show? Would it be meeting the industry people? So, getting to meet people. I've met people that have invented stuff, right? You can meet people that you've only heard about before. People that got the fastest trigger fingers ever, that kind of thing. People with gold medals, whatever, or seeing all the stuff. I mean, that's really, I think, what SHOT Show most people think about is the guns. and the other stuff, but the guns. And then being in the mix of it all. So just dropping down like that little yellow dude on the Google Maps into the industry is the reason we talk about it so much, because that's not quite like going into a blender, but there's a lot going on and it might feel like a blender sometimes. And then the last thing is those after events, those range days, and those things that are like adjacent to SHOT Show. I know that some of that, some people don't even know about it. I keep forgetting where people are. And um, it's just weird after so many years. And I've had a lot of people walk up and say, "Oh, how do I get into this thing?" Or "How do I do this?" And I forget where, I don't, it's hard to know where people are coming from. So I guess there's people that aren't thinking about those after events. I think 2AEDU even said, what was his? I've never been to a party after an event. So I don't know if that means didn't want to, or didn't feel like it, or didn't know about, or, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, is people sometimes don't even realize the stuff that happens in a week of get together. So anyway, what would you have voted for there, Clover? And I'm guessing it would have changed over the years.
It would definitely change over the years. And in that poll, I think I did vote. Meeting industry people I was in the majority there, because that hasn't really changed. I mean, that's honestly that may still be priority.
I think you first you have to be
Seeing
there, and then
seeing
once
all
you
this.
get there, then you see it all. And once you've seen it all, you start to remember people, and that's where you're meeting people. And then once you've got your bearings, you start to figure out what else there is. So I think it goes in order: being there, seeing it, meeting, and then the after event. So it probably is more of a filter, like a, what do they call that?
Yeah. Well, you
It's
got to meet people to get to the after events, but you got to get
exactly,
there and
it's
see
sort of
the
like
stuff
a
before you.
progression. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get there and be in the mix of it all before you start seeing all this stuff, before you meet the industry people, before you get the invites to the after events. So it's a progression in a way. But my favorite part of that is meeting the people, meeting the industry people for sure.
So, man, we got two more that are good. So, look, it's a 3-hour show. Sorry, but not
Oh,
sorry.
oh
So,
well.
Jeff says we should try to put together a speed dating event for brands and media that are within our circle. So, they've done that. NSSF has done it, and I've been aware of at least a couple of off premises things. I think that's a great idea. And that's something that, man, I just think that's a great idea on like 4 different
I
levels, really.
100% love that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're just playing around or if that's something you've really thought about. I mean, if it's like an impromptu
Like
thing or if that's something you've thought about, but that's something that's
yep,
got teeth. It's got real tread.
yep,
So
yep,
I am going to appropriate it because here's the deal. I put it on my screen. So how do you white out the part where it says his stuff? I'm going to just act like I said that.
right.
No, that would be a neat thing.
I like it. That is
Um,
kind of cool. Yeah,
Mine would be boring. Mine would be like all kinds of AK people and like a couple of tactical brands that are all made in USA with very compliant materials. So be very
sure.
specific and expensive, but
Yeah.
it
And
wouldn't
we're
be
gonna
lame
have
with
a
a bunch of night vision all over the place.
the thing is we're gonna have a lot of crossover. So like myself doing that with Jeff. We're gonna have a ton of crossover. Jeff took me under Ghost and I under his wing with the very first SHOT Show or whatever or what, and it was amazing and have been ever since. And I'm super appreciative for that. The same way I am with you, G, with the whole overall content creation thing. Um, so that'll be weird, but you know I got a few to bring to the table. He probably doesn't. And then, if we bring in people like Sheep Eyes or Chicago Mike or whoever else that's, new, that can be a really interesting dynamic because then you start, you know, you take creators helping creators to a whole new level of creators helping creators help the industry, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. See, it needs to be downstairs in the down that aisle where sometimes they cram the 2A stuff, but really there's nothing going on, and that's usually where they kind of, what's the word? That's like the expandable elastic part of the show. That aisle gets wider if there's less people there, and it gets narrower if they need the rows for more people, kind of thing, more booths. But that would be really interesting to see. One, the number of creators going down one side. So there needs to be examples or like booths for podcasters, for bloggers, for writers like authors, and then for like magazine authors. There's different kinds of authors, and then YouTubers, and then maybe a couple of 3 or 4 different of the spectrum of YouTubers, and then Twitterers and what is that thing? TikTokers, the different stuff going down one side, and then have your industry kind of in the same way with your manufacturers, your suppliers, your distributors, and the different representatives, so that the media gets to understand the depth and diversity and the levels, the whatever the map, right, the layout of the industry, so that it better understands where they can work in that whole thing. And then the same thing, the other side gets to go down the other side, and the industry gets to walk down the media side and go, wow, there's this much media, and I'm not aware of all of it. Yeah, that would be super interesting. And then of course, I'd be throwing a bunch of two-way stuff in there so that advocacy gets brought up in a normalizing guns type of way. Yeah, really cool idea. But we got more good ones. So I never knew about any of the parties. So answering the question from 2AEDU. It's not my business to talk about the parties that aren't my business to talk about, but yeah, there's a big industry, and I'm just going to allude to some stuff. You've got military, right? So now you've got the branches. We don't all get along. So not the branches rib each other like cousins or something, but the branches themselves, like everybody in the Army doesn't get along because there's a bunch of jerks in the Army. Everybody in the Navy probably don't get along because I don't know. I assume the boats hate each other. I don't know how that works. And the Air Force, I guess the different planes don't like each other. I don't know how it works. But what I'm saying, like, there's reasons for people in a branch to hang out with each other and not hang out with just the entire branch, like if everybody in the Army loves each other, right? So just that alone, you've got, again, the different units, the different areas of the whatever, like the military units and stuff. You've got all of those people potentially coming together, where some of them are in the industry, and it is a brotherhood. It is an opportunity to get together, and there are places to do that. So that kind of stuff happens. Then you get your competition shooters, right? And again, do all competition shooters love each other? No, they don't even know about each other. Half the time, most competition shooters barely know about the other big competition that competes against theirs, but they definitely don't know about like SAS or one of the other weird ones, right? So competition shooters are all there, and knife people. So do all knife people love each other? No, come on. So all the different knife people are having their different events. Should I keep going? Like, I imagine holster manufacturers or makers probably all get together, right? Like, that's part of SHOT Show. People that are into safes and vaults and stuff, like, I bet you they do stuff together, right? So there's all these different things that are potentially happening. Now, it's not like everything I've mentioned has a party every night or has a get together every night, but the knife people, I mean, depending on what your interest in either custom made or like, would it be like knives from a specific manufacturer? Like sometimes Spyderco has a fan base, or like the Switchblades, Emersons, and people like have, but then just people who like Switchblades in general, or tactical or custom knives in general, they'll have different events. And some of these things are, I don't know, again, it's not my place to say stuff, but there's some of them that have been going on for a long, long time. So knowing that they're there is the first step in the battle. Then I would say, what would you call them? I mean, I don't know. You got to cheat because you're like the kid with a bunch of big brothers or whatever, big sisters that, let you know about what to do and not do, and what's available to you and what's not available to you in high school or whatever. So if you go into high school knowing that there's parties, you're going to have your ear out and start going to parties, and then you know about parties. If you didn't have anybody to tell you about them, you never watched a movie, how would you know about parties at school, right? Or during high school. So it's one of those kind of things. If you never had a chance to know about them, you're not going to know about them. But once you know they exist, you can start to put out feelers and start to ask about them. So I guess my question to Clover, without ghosting them too bad here, is, do you think it's better to just tell people, here's a map of all the parties, or here's a schedule of all the parties? Or is it a spoiler? Is it like taking
No,
an
I
element of
don't like
SHOT Show away?
no, I don't like the idea of having a list of parties out there. No. I think it's like an Easter egg hunt. I think that's part of making those relationships, and everything that is the experience of SHOT Show is figuring those out. Now, that being said, I mean, I'm certainly not opposed to the tag along thing, right? So For example, we'll use last year where it was essentially myself and Ghost and myself, my wife and Ghost and Rogue, right? And so, if there was something at a party come up, it was kind of understood most of the time because there's that relationship thing there that my wife's going to probably be there. But I've got people staying or riding in the car, and then so, saying, "Hey, is it okay? How many people can I bring? Is it going to be just me?" In the case of the um, getting taken out to dinner sometimes, that's a just you invite. Like, it's just you. I mean, my wife got an invite. It was an all female, all women's event, right? Like, so there's going to be those. But if there's the
It's super
opportunity to,
awkward when you attend those, by the way.
but if it's, yeah, but if it's the opportunity to bring somebody else within your circle or group and share that experience, and that the people who are facilitating that, be it a company, organization, or whatever, is okay with that, and then cool. If it's not, that's cool too. It's their event. Um, but yeah, as far as blasting a list out there that for the whole world to see that this is going on, that's like, I don't know that that's a good approach.
So again, I don't know. That's one of those things where, I definitely look at it like it's significant and it's fun. And if you're only going once and you're just going to be, what's that called? Like a tourist, I guess. You're just going to check it out. Then why would anybody want you to go to the parties? Because then you're just going to drink stuff that other people could be drinking or eat stuff other people could be eating or something like that. Um, Especially if it's a small and intimate one or whatever. Because they're really one of the reasons the parties exist is for bonding and for create in what's the word, like just not establishing relationships, right? Like cementing really long-term relationships and stuff. Like they're places for that kind of stuff to happen. So like people that are just showing up to observe it, really, it's not, you can definitely go observe it, I guess, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's kind of a waste of a ticket, let's say, when there's somebody who'd probably appreciate it or get some use out of it or some mileage out of it, could be using that that slot. But on the other hand, if you're going to be going to this thing for a while, then getting in on them and trying to figure them out, and just like anything, I mean, I think the best way to talk, it's different than, I was going to say, like going to any kind of, like, if you got to decide what all Christmas parties you're going to go to or what all Thanksgiving parties you go to, right? Like some of them you get invited to are going to be people talking business, right? They're going to be an opportunity to get together and talk politics, but they're using the holiday as the excuse to do it. Some people are just going to party and they're using the holiday as another excuse to do it. And if, depending on your whatever, you're going to go to the ones you want to go to. So, what I'm saying? Like the parties are that, or and I don't know, we're calling them parties now. Like if all of them are parties, there are definitely some that are riotous parties. I always say it, like definitely parties, but then a lot of them are after events, and they're like a casual business thing, or like a casual, kind of what Jeff was saying, like a casual, let's bring all of our contacts together and give them some time to de-stress, kind of what I was talking about too. Like, understanding that you got a lot going on, and honestly, it's one of those things where you go to SHOT Show, you've got a lot to potential. You got a lot of whatever obligation, responsibility to take, advantage of that potential, right? And you're on the beginning of the week. It's all ahead of you. At the end of the week, you're thinking about what you're missing. So somewhere in there, you do need to de-stress. And at the same time, it's very difficult for anybody to just, like I was saying before, like go to, like you were saying, I think just take a minute and go to the range or whatever, like do something in the middle of the shot that's completely different. A lot of people can't switch gears that quickly. So, go home and spend the evening in the hot tub. Okay, I guess some people can do that. Other people, their mind's going to be going, what parties am I not at? What's happening right now that I'm missing? Like I could have been, I'm in Vegas and I'm sitting here in my hotel when I could be somewhere else doing something. So in order to deal with that anxiety or that potential stress, being at a place doing something, but at the same time not having it be super pressure, and so I'm accomplishing something. I'm here with my friends, or I'm here with some business acquaintances or whatever, but I'm at the same time, it's like at a third the pace as it was at the show. I don't have to wonder if I'm going to meet so and so. they're standing over there. I just have to wait for them to be done talking to so-and-so, and there's plenty of time to do that. So, you can still be getting stuff done, accomplishing something at like, a snail's pace, which is in some ways equivalent for some people to resting at SHOT Show. So there's that, I guess. So I don't know. So we probably, and I don't know, the after events and the range day, we kind of already talked about that, but it's such a big element of a 5-day event that, I mean, it is part of it. I don't know if maybe we'll just put it out there again at the 3-hour mark, that if you're listening to this and we've missed something, we've come, close to something, but haven't quite answered a question, feel free to, ask it in the comments or whatever, and we'll try to bring it up in the next chat. All right, well, with that, we're going to end it. It'll just be at the 3-hour mark. There's no audio for this one, so we'll probably come up with some kind of audio. I do have a scroll down at the bottom to say thanks to our Patreons. Gives us the opportunity. Patreons buy me a cup of coffee, effectively. A bunch of people, about 130 people, buy me a cup of coffee each month. A couple of them buy me lunch, so that means that a bunch of them throw about $5 at me. Some of them throw 25. And that adds up, and it makes it possible for me to spend the time on projects like this without trying to worry about, pressuring you into some grip angle or some link or whatever. That's all good, but there's other people doing that. So I appreciate that I'm able to just focus on the community, the industry, and how we cover that, and again, offering some insight and some awareness to it, and to create a place where we can get together and do that. So then this is all our Patreons giving me the time to do it. I know Clover's got Patreons and people that support his projects. In fact, I think you've got a pretty creative way to help you and Ghost afford to get to SHOT Show this year. So costs, obviously a big portion. We're capitalists, and we're talking about the industry, an industry that swells with funding every time they get attacked, every time we get abused as gun owners, every time they try to marginalize our property or the possession of it or our use of it because of some atrocity that's incited by the media, the industry gets rich. We should not, as people who cover and are a big chunk of the industry, we should not feel that we need to fund our own coverage of it. Value your voice, value what you contribute. I know that's tough to say, or it's tough to hear for some people, but you are part of the industry. You are a part of how this works with YouTube and whatnot, with the social platforms and whatnot. They can't afford to bring people on board to do this stuff, but they can afford to help you out. So get a Patreon, get relationships going, get conversations going with other creators and see what creative ways they've come up with stuff. Talk to people in your community, talk to people in your area of interest, and get yourself to SHOT Show. We're capitalists. One of the ways you can do that is what I started. I ghosted Clover here. So how are you and Ghost attempting, or what's one of the ways you guys are doing it this year?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, I've already dropped the link out there, so has Ghost, but yeah, I mean, instead of going to, I mean, obviously we've got
That's
the
a shitty way.
relationship.
I'm gonna interrupt you. This is supposed to be a dude who's coaching people. This is a shitty way to drop a link. So if you're gonna drop a link to your own project, put in something like grab one of our cool stickers, like he just did right here, and then put like dash 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 and then your link. But here, all I can put up is your boring link. So I'll put up your boring link. But now go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's out there, but anyway, um, yeah, when we talk about the relationships and things like that. So, I mean, could we go to individual companies and maybe, get $50 or $100 or this, that, or the other? Sure. But a funner way to do it, is that even a word? Um, is putting together a prize package with that, and then offering limited edition. There's only 200 of them stickers, signed and numbered. So there's some type of um, to way to tell that they're legitimately, limited. And that's one of the better ways to do that, because anybody could reprint them or whatever, but who could, number them or especially sign them and get all of that correct. So, they're legitimately unique. And then tie those stickers to entries, winner take all, into that $1,600 prize package. And we're talking about, 17, 16, 17, 18, I don't even know, different prizes, anything from a handgun to the ammunition to the range bag to medical gear to Idear Pro and a whole host of other things. Um, and it's not, even though it's that many items, not quite that many companies. Some of the companies have kicked in multiple items, but great prize package. And yeah, I mean, it spreads it around. I mean, it's one of those things that it kind of gets the audience involved. I mean, you're able to be more a part of it, and that's what makes this so much fun. Like, could we turn on cameras and could we create videos and like never have anybody comment, never have anybody in the live chat, never have anybody, you know, that you meet up with at an event, never have anybody really care. Maybe they watch your stuff, maybe millions and millions of people watch your stuff, but at the end of the day, nobody really cares and nobody's really engaged and nobody's really a part of the whole thing that you're doing. Um, and it's just a way of a fun way of putting it out there where everybody can be, a part of what's going on. And yeah, as I mentioned out there with the stickers, one sticker equals one entry, but five stickers equals 6 entries, and we've had several folks take advantage of stacking the odds on that. So just yeah, think about that. We've also had some people, and I'm not going to get specific into this, but we've had some people that have gifted stickers. So that's a thing too. They've reached out, bought them, and then said, "Hey, can I put so and so's name on this sticker or so and so's name on this sticker?" 100% totally can do that. Check out that link. It does run through PayPal, but I know some people that have had some issues. If you have some issues um, on that page, it does say, "Hey, contact me if you have payment issues, and we can work out an alternative form of payment." It's not a big deal.
Right on. And that's again a way that you can, or you guys are, collaborating and participating with a bunch of different folks to get you there and having some fun along the way with it. And when's the next live thing you're doing about it? Putting you on the spot because I don't remember seeing one already on the calendar.
I don't know. I mean, it went live yesterday over on the GunTuber Academy channel. Went live last Thursday on the CloverTac Cards channel. As far as a live on the main channel, on the CloverTac channel, I don't see one of those happening before SHOT Show. I mean, there's other things with that channel that need to get done before then.
Well, when you got some time, I'm going to suggest go live, and if nothing else, just go live and read through the different participants, give them an extra little plug or whatever, and just let people know that it's out there, kind of just to fluff it a little bit and to give you an excuse to make a bunch of links to the participants, because then, then that obviously, if you're live during that, gives you a chance to elaborate on some stuff. But
you're talking about with the stickers.
Yeah. Talking about the stickers.
Yeah, I don't like I mean, maybe going and talking about that, but there are some. I mean, 280U, he's talking about he got some out there, and so did Jeff. Thanks for that, Jeff. But there's some that they don't. I mean, they don't want their name out there. They don't want to be said. I mean, I guess the other channels probably are not going to mind, right? So I get where you're going with that. And it's obviously
I'm talking about the $1,600 worth.
Oh,
of
you're
stuff.
talking about the industry side of the. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
No, I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
the stuff. That's all.
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And we're gonna do something. I don't know what yet. I'm gonna have to get with Ghost. I've been again busy week this week. It has been this weekend's been crazy, but it being Black Friday and Thanksgiving and all this crazy stuff coming up, Ghost and I definitely are gonna have to get on and do something. Whether we do some type of a video collab or a live or something, and do a push this weekend for sure.
All right. So I guess since to make this thing brief or whatever, make this video concise. Since we're talking about it, it'll be it'll be Black Friday, and that's when people traditionally go to the store and fight. And now it's cool to not do that and to just buy everything online. And then Saturday is usually the traditional kind of kickback to everybody going to the big box stores and getting the really good deals on the loss leaders. And it's called Small Business Saturday. Hopefully that hasn't been forgotten as Black Friday kind of changes into just going online and buying everything.
Yep.
Just meaning sales. But that Small Business Saturday is a pretty cool thing. And it might be a little bit too late, but since we're talking about SHOT Show and we're talking about getting to SHOT Show and we're talking about being part of the industry and valuing your voice, if you're listening to this 3 hours in, you've got a grasp and an understanding of YouTube that is at an intermediate, if not advanced level, especially compared to most gun shops. Most gun shops are small businesses. Most gun shops are either doing something for Small Business Saturday or should be doing something for Small Business Saturday. That means they need help getting the word out. And you've got a large audience, and the large audience means some, maybe even a bunch of local people. And if you can motivate people to walk through a door, you show your value, as these guys have been talking about, to people who can definitely afford to participate in your project. So Small Business Saturday is an amazing opportunity for someone who's creating a channel, especially in an environment like we have in 2022 in the gun community. Those small businesses, those gun shops, those local manufacturers, those instructors, those like holster manufacturers, think about all the stuff that's happening in a normal sized town or adjacent, around the whole country. It's full of people that are, in the industry, and Small Business Saturday is an opportunity for you to be championing them. So if you're, again, looking for something to do with some time off or with some, what you can do to effort towards SHOT Show, but in the immediate, Small Business Saturday, right? Then you got Cyber Monday. Yeah, Cyber Monday. And that's where you get to head over to our gear website store, head over to CloverTac store. Ghost just got new patches over at his store. Does Gear Report have a store? 2A EDU probably has a store. So, if you value folks that are doing stuff, none of us are independently wealthy. We can all appreciate money. So Cyber Monday is when you can use the stores that are online. That's the traditional old-fashioned way back in the olden days before the internet. That's when you would go online and purchase your stuff. Nowadays, it's getting a little bit different. And then Tuesday is Giving Tuesday. So we just purchased a bunch of stuff. We were just a bunch of capitalists. A lot of times we appreciate those who volunteer or sign up to do the jobs that allow us to have these individual freedoms, this liberty that we all share. And the veterans, charities, the veterans, nonprofit organizations, the veterans groups are great potential for recipients on Giving Tuesday. You've got the mental health awareness and suicide prevention. One of the biggest contributors to the abuses and the marginalization of gun owners is the individuals who decide, or whatever you want to say, suicide and awareness and mental health awareness and removing barriers to entry are things that we have championed on our side, on the gun owner side. And we have great organizations that are working towards that. Great potential in local and national level to participate in that with the Giving Tuesday. There are nonprofit organizations that are doing the lawsuits that everybody's aware of, and that's an opportunity for that. Is there something on Wednesday? I'm sure at some point there's going to be a Wednesday one, or if there isn't already, from that whole series. I think Clover's doing his other thing. Let's see. So 2AEDU says I'm doing to give away some of the stickers on the stream. Oh, you're going to give away some of the Ghost and Clover stickers on your stream to help promote them a bit. Right on. Bjorn is asking how to buy a sticker. Well, they insist on putting this dead link out here, this boring link without any kind of description. So let me link to it here, but you can just click on this link. And can you buy more than 5 stickers? I'm pretty sure they can buy as many stickers as you want. We'll go ahead and delete that thing, and we'll, I guess, wrap it up. I'm guessing Clover's lack of saying anything is because whatever he's got going on is going on. At some point, I've got a little tiny thing walking around with the tiniest of little bladders that will eventually need to be outside. So I'll be doing that here shortly. And we'll say thanks again to the people that joined us live, and appreciate everybody that stuck around for this long. If you're appreciating what we're doing, then consider again joining us on Patreon, grabbing us a cup of coffee each month, maybe buying us dinner or lunch, however you want to look at it. It accumulates and allows us to do what we do. Until next time, thanks for watching. Are you back yet?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and end the show then. I don't know if you're listening, but we're ending, so go ahead and you can just wrap it up.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been back and forth. I mean, since the top of the last hour, I guess it was.
Yeah, no worries.
I've had some other engagements, so my apologies for kind of being in and out, and being flaky. But big again, great conversation. We went down a bunch of rabbit holes, but for all of the people out there, too numerous to mention. We've got all kind of awesome creators that were out there in the chat, adding to the mix and their perspectives and helping. That's what this is all about. Diversity of opinion. I spoke at the top of the show, for those that may be coming late, about Chris from the 740, another awesome channel. Check him out. And how Ghost and I had been talking with him about getting the SHOT Show, and he was planning on going in 24. And he's like, you really need to go in 23. You really need to go in 23. And, it took the gun snob because of some experiences that the gun snob had talking to him, to push him over the edge and change his mind to really get it in gear and try to get in for 23. So you never know. That's why it's great to have that support structure and a variety of creators, kind of in your circles and in your network. So I've always been thankful for that. The relationships with the industry are wonderful, but the relationships with other creators and the camaraderie and everything is wonderful as well. So yeah, we often don't give the good chats credit. Sometimes the side chats get weird and crazy and all of that, but it was a rocking great side chat today. And thanks for those that contributed to that.
We'll be back here next Tuesday.